back to it. This little harmless box.
So this is the article in question, is it? The small box deposited with the pawnbroker by Mr. McGilda 2 months ago.
And on the night of Mr. Windybank's murder, the only item on the shelves that was touched by whoever broke into the shop.
Quick, let's open it and see what's inside.
Good gracious, this is no ordinary music box, it seems.
Wow. Although in truth, I had an inkling that might be the case. It would appear that the box houses a miniature music box movement. Hey guys, what if we put the disc in there?
Then, is it too much to expect?
I think it would be reasonable to assume that this is a device for the playback of this disc, my lord. This box killed 3 people! You're right!
So here we have the means to play back Mr. McGilda's disc, deposited at Windybank's at much the same time.
I'm gonna move my seat. Not strictly correct, my lord. It was not McGilda's disc. It was the disc of this victim in the omnibus.
But why? For heaven's sake! Are we to understand that the brickmaker was trying to sell this music box disc to Mr. McGilda?
I believe the answer will become clear if we listen to the music on the disc, my lord.
Yes, very well. Let the court now listen to this curious disc at last.
Uh-oh. Wait, my lord!
Good grief, what is the meaning of this, Inspector? This music box and the disc are, they're unrelated to the case. No need to spoil the somber atmosphere in the courtroom with some silly bit of music.
This may very well have motivated the culprit in this case to commit murder. Clearly, there's every chance that it's fundamentally important to understanding what happened. The prosecution has no objection.
But no, that piece of evidence is police property now. You can't...
Shut up. I'm the prosecutor. Clearly, Scotland Yard has some vested interest here. But it is policy of this prosecutor to leave no avenues unexplored. And you, Inspector, have no jurisdiction here to prevent that from happening. My God, I've never been so happy for Baroque right now.
No further delays, please. Play the disc. What on earth? That's certainly not what I would call music.
Because, sir, it is Morse code. Or at least part of it. No. It's just the same note playing over and over again in an irregular sequence.
Mr. Graydon?
This really is priceless. After all that, the music box is broken. Broken? It can't be, can it? Well, obviously. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the officer sent to fetch it didn't drop it on the way back to the courtroom.
Well, with much regret, I feel the court must accept that this music box offers little in the way of clues.
Y'all! It's Morse code!
Are you ready to move on, counsel?
No! Come on. Yes, alright, it does sound as though it's completely broken, but is it? Could this music emanating from the music box possibly be a new clue? I believe that it could be relevant, my lord.
Good lord, but how can it be? It's an abomination, counsel. Mere noise. I fail to see how it can have any meaning whatsoever.
It does sound strange, I agree, but there's one thing bothering me. While Graydon stands there chortling victoriously, The inspector beside him has a rather telling expression on his face. It's as if Gregson recognizes the sound, as if he's familiar with it somehow. And that's making him appear extremely on edge. If that's the stance of the defense, my Nipponese friend, answer me this. No! Let's just keep playing it and stress out Gregson! I love it, we're just stressing Gregson out! Just what relevance do you propose this woeful chiming has on this case? It's the defense belief that the sound emanating from this box is not supposed to be music. Just because this is a music box, it doesn't necessarily mean the sounds we're hearing are music. Look at that. The smile vanished from Graydon's lips as soon as I said it. I'm on the right lines here. I must be.
Making deductions based on how people react to what you say. You're acting just like Hurley, Runo.
Objection!
The sounds we are hearing aren't necessarily music. Well, now that you told us that, what they're not. I'm sure the court would like to hear what they are. Do enlighten us, my Nipponese friend. Well, surely you have an idea in mind, because if not, it will be the death of your ill-informed argument. Exactly. The music box is clearly broken. Refusing to accept that fact is pure foolishness. Ooh! They've got me. I don't know what the answer is, yet.
Runo? I've just examined the music box very thoroughly. And I'm fairly certain that it's not broken at all.
Really?
Really? The way it's been made, it can only produce a single note anyway.
Thank you, Iris. Let's keep playing this song! Alright, well if the music box isn't broken, it must mean that the sound it's producing have some significance that isn't musical. Could it be... Is that what these sounds are?
Something just struck me, Runo. I feel like recently, in the past few hours even, I've heard another sound very much like the one this music box makes.
Yes, it's a similar sound. Actually, Iris, I was just thinking exactly the same thing.
I'm going to have to press the defense for an answer. If your assertion is that the sound produced by this music box is not in fact music at all, then what the devil is it, counsel?
All the evidence we've seen so far, all the testimonies we've heard, it's all pointing to one single answer now. The prosecution demands that my learned Nipponese friend present proof now. Tangible proof of this latest wild speculation. Alright then. This could be the best chance I'm going to get to fight back in this trial. And if I'm right, it's going to join all the dots together. Figuratively and literally. The evidence that explains the true nature of the sounds on this music box disc is... this article.
Take that!
Today's paper, counsel. The headline is Pawnbroker Perishes in Pick-Purse Plunder. Hardly supportive of your case.
No, my lord, I was hoping you'd look a little further down the page.
Further down? Ministry Mole. Classified secrets may have been leaked overseas from Ministry of Justice. Oh yes, this is a very serious matter, being investigated at the high level. I understand.
I have heard that international transmissions along supposedly secure lines are somehow being intercepted and leaked to various other countries. And presumably, those transmissions are in the form of wired telegrams. Of course. Juror number 5, your input, please. Stop. Oh, me, sir. Whatever is the matter? You told the court before that you worked at the same communication station as Mr. Graydon, did you not? Yes, that's correct. And the particular station where you work? deals with government communications and newspaper reports.
Oh, yes. Well, not your run-of-the-mill communication station at all. Our work is extremely important.
Then tell me, is this not a very familiar sound?
You don't mean to say... Is it?
That's right, madam. It bears more than a passing resemblance to the sound made by your telegraph machine as you tap it. I believe it's called Morse code?
But I don't believe it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to leaking telegrams from government departments, there could be nobody more perfectly placed than a highly skilled communications officer. Oh, are you suggesting that music box disc contains stolen government secrets in Morse code?
Order, order! Please, everyone, order! But this is high treason, Council, deserving of capital punishment.
Too much new vocabulary. What is this treason? What is capital punishment? The sorts of words I'd half expect you to know.
For our sovereign government's confidential information, hostile nations would surely pay almost any price.
Yes, and on that night 2 months ago, that was the very negotiation that was taking place inside the omnibus. But in the end, McGilded perished, and the all-important disc lay unclaimed in the pawnbrokery.
My word!
In which case, whoever stole that information in the first place must surely have been beside himself with worry. Because if the disc were to be discovered before it found its way out of the country,
it would reveal an act of high treason, punished by death.
So the culprit had no choice but to retrieve it. And in order to do that, he would have to gain entry to the pawnbrokery illegally in the middle of the night. Because the article left behind by Mr. McGilded would incriminate him too much if it got into the wrong hands. Gregson's crying internally. Isn't that right, Mr. Graydon? You think I've been stealing government secrets? Preposterous. Absolutely preposterous.
So, in response to the defense's accusations, you claim complete innocence, do you?
Well, of course I do. I've had to stand here in silence while that pretentious foreign lawyer has been prattling away.
Objection!
Then by all means, counter the charges, sir. The prosecution demands the witness testifies in response to the accusations brought by the defense. For once, I'm not yelling at the defense. Delighted, I'm sure.
The witness is reminded that the crime under scrutiny in this trial is the murder of the pawnbroker, Mr. Windybank. That being a most flagitious offense, for which the law of this land sanctions a capital punishment. But the heinous act of high treason is no less a serious crime. I urge you to bear that in mind as you testify, Mr. Graydon. So then, let us proceed.
Huh? Oh no!
You gotta let us have a rabbit and pork here, Governor. We got things to say. I beg your pardon? Who do you think you are? Name's Nash Skulkin. Occupation is professional baddie.
Name's Ringo Skulkin, but we ain't baddies enough to sell out our Mulverlin. Mulverlin.
That's right. Here's what we're what they're called. The Three Skulkin Brothers. Bad timing, fellows. Very bad timing.
Oh, I love them. They're so good. Graydon's counter. A mere communications officer couldn't possibly steal confidential government information. Besides, the sound produced by that music box aren't even Morse code. It was some low-class brickmaker negotiating with McGilded anyway, was it not? I've no relation to the man.
Look, all we done is break into the gaff the other night like what he told us to do. If we'd known there was dodgy government secrets involved, we wouldn't have touched it.
They just criminalized Graydon?
Mr. and Mr. Skulkin. One Mr. Do, Governor. What's up? Do I take it that you now admit to the crime? That on the night in question, you did indeed gain entry to the premises illegally? And moreover, you did also as a party of 3, in collaboration with Mr. Graydon here. We did, Gov! We did!
So are they helping or making it worse?
Quieten down, please. What say you to that, Mr. Graydon?
I have no idea what these two ruffians are referring to.
You little rotter, getting us mixed up in all this monkey business. You never said nothing about government secrets, and we're supposed to be a straight-up job. And what about that geezer who stopped at was, eh? Poor old bloke didn't have to die, did he?
Nice to know who your friends are. Whatever these men say, I deny the accusations.
Indeed.
I swear to God, he's just a really handsome Varn Karma. Everything is stacked up against him, but he's still pretending it's nothing.
Well, I certainly wasn't expecting this little music box to become so significant to the proceedings. However, as it has, I was admitted into the court record as evidence.
Small music box. This strange music box only appears to be able to play a single tone. It was deposited at Whitney Banks 2 days before the black overcoat. Before we do anything, let's look at this thing. This is the mechanism that turns the bump on the disc into sounds, isn't it?
Yes, the movement. It's all thanks to the comb with its teeth that are plucked by the passing bumps. Usually the teeth of the comb are different lengths so that each one produces a different tone. But this comb is very strange. All the teeth are exactly the same length.
Well, what does that mean?
It means that no matter which tooth is plucked by the passing bumps, the music box will make the same sound. I've never seen a music box like this before.
Yes, it is strange. A music box that can only play a single note. There has to be some significance to that, surely. How about we open... Oh, what the... Oh!
What's this, Runo?
I've just noticed something about this music box. It looks like the bottom of it opens up as well.
Oh, you're right. Well, come on then. What are you waiting for? Let's open it.
All right then, here goes.
Look at that. There's another movement on the underside.
So, does that mean you can set another disc to play back on this side?
Yes, I think so. And it looks like the two movements are linked together.
They're linked?
So if you had two discs, they would both play back at the same time.
Who'd have thought there would be a second movement on the underside of the box?
And this movement is like the other one. The comb's teeth are all the same length.
So, this movement also only produces a single tone like the other one.
Yes, it must do. Except that the length of the teeth on the two combs isn't the same. So the single tone produced by this movement will be different to the single tone we've already heard.
What?
Basically, each movement can only produce a single note.
But the notes they produce are different. A music box that can only play 2 tones. This is not updating. Interesting. Suspicious. It's not updating, though.
Hold it!
So, is this newspaper headline accurate? Government communications are being intercepted. How could I possibly know? What did you mean by that? Any important government communications are handled by high-level officers, by specialists. General members of staff in the station where I work would never be entrusted with sensitive information. Oh no, stop. Must say something, stop. Let me guess. Juror number 5.
We're regular communication station officers aren't as lowly as you've been led to believe.
A team of us are responsible for setting up and testing the telegraphs used by the ministry. And Mr. Graydon is the team leader. That's fascinating. Everyone is against you, buddy!
Graydon is highly skilled operator. Stop. Currently in presence of idol. Stop. So you had access to the equipment used for these confidential communications, Mr. Graydon.
Well, what of it? The transmissions are always made behind closed doors, so they can't be heard. And in any case, all messages are sent in ciphered. Normal employees couldn't possibly understand them.
Oh no, stop. Must say something, stop. Mr. Graydon regularly attends meetings with ministry technicians and the ministry communications team. He assists them in ensuring that there are no errors in important international communications. And he received the top prize at the Cipher Cracking Convention 5 years in a row now.
Boy, Juror 5, you are his #1 fan. That's fascinating.
Graydon is highly skilled operator. Stop. Currently in presence of idol. Stop.
Well, your idol would appreciate it if you keep your mouth shut. She should really pick her idols more carefully. I tell you, this lawyer's accusations are completely unfounded.
Are they, man? Are they?
Hold it!
They're not?
To anyone with a brain, that would be blatantly apparent on listening to that music box for even a few seconds.
Of course.
Surely it can't be that my learned friend is unfamiliar with Morse code. Ouch. He looks generally shocked at my ignorance.
Ha 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 ha. I would be more than happy to demonstrate the basics for you, sir.
A lesson? Here in court?
Morse code is a continuous series of 2 distinct tones.
Tones, you say?
Yes, a short dot and a long dash. By combining those in different ways, you construct letters.
I see.
For example, this is A. And this is B. But when you listen to the sound produced by this music box, you only hear one tone, don't you?
But it sounds so similar. The rhythm is the same in everything. But there's no discernible meaning to this apparently random sequence of sounds. So your assertion is fundamentally flawed. This is not Morse code.
No!
Not yet. Really, you shouldn't be surprised. What did I tell you? That music box is nothing but a worthless piece of scrap. Then why were you after it so badly? Perhaps you might consider studying your subject matter before casting aspersions in the future. Aspersions in future. Stop. Nothing to say, but stop.
Oh, it's so frustrating, isn't it?
Iris?
I mean, if the government secrets was somehow being leaked using the music box, so many other things would slot into place so nicely.
Could there still be something I haven't considered? Would it really be impossible to use this music box somehow to play back Morse code? I'll come back to this. The defense will concede the music box is irrelevant for the time being. For the time being. Such optimism. Too debonair to admit defeat, are we? Ugh, those gesticulations are really starting to grate.
It can't be Morse code unless it has 2 distinct tones.
Perhaps I should examine that music box a little more detail. Stop smiling! We're gonna get you in a moment. I just want to press everything.
Hold it!
So 2 months ago in that omnibus, McGilded killed the brickmaker and stole the disc. Mr. Mason was a single man with almost nothing to his name. It seems he lived in an artisan quarter some years ago, but people there remember little about him. That doesn't make much sense though, does it? How would a humble brickmaker come to acquire secret government information? How indeed? There must have been somebody else involved behind the scenes in all of this. Somebody who acquired the disc and gave it to Mr. Mason in order to take it to the meeting with McGilded and negotiate a deal. Count your eggs? Dear me. You may have it in for me, sir, but I assure you, I have far more class than that. An old brickmaster from an artisan quarter, and this well-to-do communications officer. If only I could find some evidence to link the two of them together. Stop smiling!
If you have nothing more to add on that note, let us return to the witness testimony.
Hold it!
Like Mr. Graydon told you to do, you mean?
That's right, yeah! Who else, eh? Silly me thought it was just popping over for a natter after all them years, but the rotter had a dodgy job for us. Hey, Ash!
Oh my god. Let me stop you there, Mr. Skulkin. After all them years, you say. Do you mean to tell me that Mr. Graydon is an acquaintance of yours?
We're the sociable kind of baddies, you know? Sure, let's say Graydon's an old China.
Enough! Why don't you baddies cease with the fiction? Obviously, I don't know these men from Adam. Now, for the last time, stop trying to implicate me in your sordid thievery.
Well, that's blooming nice, isn't it? You little turncoat. Fine, if that's how you want it. Two can play at that game. We ain't never heard of this geezer before either. Don't know him from Adam. Never spoken to him before in me life. Never even seen him. Never, Nash, never! Good grief, such a blatant lie will not stand in my courtroom. Well, all I say is this.
Hold it!
So, did you know nothing about this music box?
We didn't know nothing. We still don't know nothing. And we ain't planning on knowing nothing about it either.
But 2 nights ago, you did indeed break into Windy Bank's pawnbrokery, didn't you? In your original testimony, you said that the door of the shop was ajar and that it was like some kind of a sign begging you to go in. But the truth is, you were planning to break into Windy Banks all along, weren't you?
We were, Gov, we were. You're right there. 'Cause that's what he told us to do. It was his plan.
And why was it Mr. Graydon's plan to break into Windy Banks that night? Did you not ask the reason?
Well, he said the place was full of stuff worth nicking. That's what he told us beforehand, anyway. Turned out it was a load of cobblers, didn't it? I wasn't best pleased, I could tell ya.
In any case, if they know the real reason, it doesn't sound like they're going to give it away. All of a sudden, we seem to be up to our necks in a serious matter of national security. Although all this talk about interception of secret government messages is still just conjecture at this stage.
It would explain a number of things, though, wouldn't it? The negotiation Ginny overheard on the omnibus 2 months ago, and the break-in at Windy Banks. But the trouble is, it wasn't Mr. Graydon in the omnibus with Mr. McGilded.
No, that was Mr. Mason, the brickmaker who was so horribly murdered.
If only there was some link between the two men somehow.
I know, but Mr. Graydon's testimony seems to be as watertight as ever. I wonder if the key to us making headway with the cross-examination here could be those two brothers. I'm not presenting, but let me see if I can update now that I've, pressed him. I just want to see if I can update this now. Nope. Okay, won't update. Alright, well, we'll talk to Nash, I believe, is the one that had the thing.
Hold it! Excuse me.
Is something wrong, Mr. Skokin? Hey? No, the other Mr. Skokin. What? Oh, me? When your brother was testifying just now, he said something that seemed to cause you to react. Oh, I was just remembering the old days, that's all. We used to have a right old laugh together way back when. Together? With Mr. Graydon, you mean?
Yeah, with Ash, I mean. You look at him now in his fancy, whistling a flute, and you wouldn't Adam and Eve it. But when he was younger, he was from the poor part of town, just like us.
Is that so?
But he was always a leery one. He had brains. He had savvy. Always coming up with smart ideas like what would never have gone through our heads. Oh, blimey, ain't that the truth? Remember, Milverton and Skokin's milk run. That was a corker, eh?
Save it until after the trial. Your reminiscing has no place in this courtroom.
Milverton, huh?
And neither does your fruit.
Oi, the geezer asked us a question, didn't he? And he was answering. Yeah, we ain't done nothing wrong. Nevertheless, the court is not prepared to accompany you on your trip down memory lane. Counsel, can we turn our attention back to the testimony, please?
I don't know. Could that sentimental story be relevant somehow?
Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah!
My lord.
Yes, counsel.
The brother's last sentimental statement could hold vital information relating to this case.
Very well, counsel. Counsel, I will permit the brothers to supplement their testimony with that detail. Briefly, I hasten to add. Say no more! Our Skokin's never Skokin. Milverton and Skokin Milk Run. Gore, them were the days.
Hold it!
I'm sure I'm going to regret asking, but, what exactly was that? Some kind of business?
Just a little scheme we had going back when we was youngsters. A bit of fun, really. Delivering fresh milk to the locals, that's what it was all about.
That sounds alarmingly legitimate. There must be some catch. I suppose since we're here, I should ask them to elaborate, but on what? So this business was just a bit of fun, you say? And it was just yourselves and Mr. Graydon involved?
Yeah, that's it.
Milverton and Skulk's milk run, was it?
Yeah, that's it.
And where did the Milverton part come from?
Oh, right. I thought a clever clogs like you'd have worked that out. It's...
Enough of this. How much longer are we expected to listen to this drivel? I don't... Shut up! Let me listen! Let me guess. You don't accept anything these two witnesses are saying. We heard us hold it. Tell me, why is it that it was only at the mention of the name Milverton that you decided to interject? Because well...
It wasn't the applest of homes that one came from. Yeah, his old man was struggling for money so much. His wife walked out on him.
I like how, like, as they bite, the fruit comes back to its full shape again.
She took the name Graydon then, see? But Ash will always be Milverton to us.
Milverton. So that used to be your surname then. Of course not. This is all bunkum. I've been a Graydon since I was born. Do you really think you can rely on the testimony of these two thieves, You're a communication officer attached to the civil service. As such, your personal details will have been thoroughly checked at the time of your appointment. It would be a very simple matter indeed to subpoena those records, Mr. Graydon.
Ooh! Well, it would appear that Mr. and Mr. Skokin's testimony has been reliable, for once. You were born Ashley Milverton, then. Is that correct?
Very well. Yes. Got you. So Ash Graydon was once Ashley Milverton. That information could change things, and could turn out to be extremely important. A telegraph operator at the Central Communication Station whose last name was once Milverton years ago. He's a childhood friend of the Skulkin brothers. We got you! There's no running now! All of a sudden, we seem to be... Oh, I'm skipping that. Okay, yeah, let me see if I can grab it.
Hold it!
Oh, I don't think I can. Oh no, this is an entirely different statement. I don't think I can ask for it anymore. We promised to deliver milk for half the price the other geezer's doing it. People couldn't wait to sign on the dotted line. We were raking it in, we were. So, did you live on a dairy farm or something? Oh, wait, no, they're answering the other question for me right now. Whoopsies, I'm gonna have to... Oh, whatever. Okay, let me check the history. Yeah, okay, Rianelsuke did ask the question. The option just didn't come up because, you know, we've already done it. So how did your little business work exactly? Well, every morning down our way, the milkman would come with his cart to deliver milk, see? If you stuck your empties outside your front door, he would leave you them full again, right? So we swooped in on the action, got people to sign up with us. We promised to deliver milk for half the price on the other geezers and the other geezers doing it. The people couldn't wait to sign on the dotted line. We were raking it in, we were. So, did you live on a dairy farm or something? Gordon Bennett, are you off your rocker? We had nothing. We were poor to have a farm. Right. No, what we had going on was simple once you had the idea. We just switch them over, see? Our customers empties with the full ones from anyone who wasn't on our books. And dawdled, right? That is a very good scheme. I think you meant to say a diddle, and that's a crime. It was just an harmless bit of fun, that's all. Milking the general public in such a fashion is most certainly not harmless, as you put it. Well, it was him what came up with the idea. Ash is the evil genius. You mean Mr. Graydon? So Ashley Graydon was once Ashley Milverton, and we're going to skip that. Alright, back to the actual case in hand. We got the information we needed, now we just need to find him.
Objection!
Got you. Mr. Ashley Milverton. Tell me, why did you try to hide your former name from the court? Because I haven't gone by that name for years. It means nothing to me. No, I don't think that's the real explanation at all. The truth is, you had a reason to hide that name.
Explain yourself, please, counsel.
I have here the notes from the omnibus case, my lord. And as we all know, the victim, the man who we now understand to have been negotiating with McGilded.
Yes, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker.
That's right. Only Mason wasn't his sure name at all. It was his given name. His full name was Mason Milverton.
Milverton? Do you mean to say saints alive?
Mr. Ashley Milverton, is it not the case that the brickmaker, Mr. Mason Milverton, was your father? I don't... As I believe I mentioned earlier, your family history will have been thoroughly checked when you join the civil service. And it really would take no time at all for the court to subpoena those records. Ugh. The truth is, you have been illegally acquiring highly confidential government information. and selling it on to McGilded in collaboration with your father. Objection! This is slander. I carved a new life for myself as a respectable communication officer, as a gentleman. I have no idea what my father had been up to, but it has nothing to do with me. And may I remind the court that the assertion that this disc contains some sort of message in Morse code has been reliably disproven by a professional and independent communications officer, no less.
The relationship between the victim of the omnibus case and the witness is undoubtedly significant. However, the defense's argument remains somewhat incomplete, I feel.
No!
I believe the cross-examination should continue.
Alright, so Morse code uses 2 tones. If I could just demonstrate the possibility that this could have been used to generate 2 distinct tones.
Perhaps we should have a really good look over the music box, Runo.
I will reiterate your testimony, if you please, Mr. Graydon. You will.
If I must, though I maintain exactly what I did at the start of this pointless cross-examination. A mere communications officer couldn't possibly steal confidential government information.
Hold it!
So is this newspaper headline accurate? Government communications are being intercepted. How could I possibly know? What do you mean by that? Did I read this already? Oh yeah, I did. I thought he changed his statement. Okay, but the problem is it won't let me update the music box no matter what.
Hold it!
God, this is so funny in fast forward motion. There's still every possibility that this music box was instrumental in the leaking of government secrets. That's the belief of the defense, at least.
Objection!
Does it please you in some way, my Nipponese friend, to repeat the same line of argument ad infinitum? Infinitum. It's already been established to be Morse code. 2 tones are required. Dots and dashes. Yes, I'm well aware of that. Then what?
Well, it would appear the defense has a hypothesis to put forward. You had better present your idea at once, counsel. How do you propose that this music box, which appears to produce only a single tone, could have been used to cipher secret messages into Morse code?
Well, I'll show you. Let's open this thing.
Got it!
Good gracious! What am I looking at here? Another movement on the underside of the music box.
What? It appears, my lord, that the 2 movements are linked together. In other words, you can put 2 discs in this music box, and the sounds of both will play back at the same time.
Good heavens!
As the court has heard, Morse code comprises of 2 tones, a short dot and a long dash. With a second disc in place, the music box could be used to generate Morse code and convey a message. The new facts and evidence unveiled by the cross-examination of this witness all come together to reveal the truth. The truth, you say? That you collaborated with your father, Mr. Mason Milverton, in illegal dealings with Magnus McGilded.
By dint of this music box, you mean, counsel?
Yes, stealing information being sent in secret government communications and selling it on to McGilded. Mr. Graydon concocted this elaborate scheme of using 2 music box discs to encode the information, as presumably a safety measure against the information falling into the wrong hands.
And a very effective one. I shouldn't have given the scheme any credit whatsoever.
But the deal with McGilded went sour, and the brickmaker met his end. Yes, but before he was arrested, McGilded managed to temporarily dispose of the stolen disc at the pawnbroker. Then, having learned of the situation, you appeared at Windybanks 2 days ago, in an attempt to recover the 2 articles McGilded had placed in pawn there. But that attempt failed. One of the discs was seized by the police, and the other you never found. So that same night, you enlisted the help of the Skulkin brothers and broke into the pawnbrokery. This time, determined to recover the second disc.
Are you suggesting that the second disc was inside the music box? Eh? We never knew nothing about that.
On the night that Mr. Windybank was killed, the intruder to the pawnbrokery touched one item, and one item alone, the music box.
As rather ingeniously demonstrated using the 2 prints from the security camera, indeed.
So, the question that naturally begs answering is this: why was only that one article disturbed? The answer is obvious, because it contained the second disc, which the intruder was desperate to retrieve. Since if it were to fall into the hands of the police, it would be proof of high treason. Well, Mr. Graydon, do you deny that all of this actually began on that fateful night 2 months ago? I refuse to accept any of this nonsense. Sir, you are bleeding from your arm now. Sir. Sir. There appears to be blood seeping through the sleeve of your jacket. What? Ah! 2 nights ago, we know that 3 shots were fired at the scene of the crime in Windybank's pawnbrokery. 1 took the life of the pawnbroker himself. 1 struck the pouch around Mr. Sholm's waist. And the final bullet struck the calendar on the wall of the shop, having first pierced the arm of one of the intruders. Mr. Graydon, that wound on your arm that you seem to be trying to hide, it's a bullet wound, isn't it?
He's got you now, me old China. Time to call it quits and croak, I reckon.
Don't acknowledge my presence there under any circumstances whatsoever. Those were my terms, remember? And I paid you handsomely to comply. Clearly, I was a fool to think I could trust some common back slum thieves. Oh. Fine. I admit it. I was there in Windybanks that night. I paid this pair 10 guineas to accompany me. And as you've noticed, I sustained an injury in the course of my adventures. Did ketchup? Did ketchup even exist back then? But that is all. I admit to nothing more. Stealing government secrets, negotiating with Mr. McGilded. As God is my witness, I'm sure I recalled nothing of the sort. He's not going to go down without a fight. Not until I can show hard evidence, I suppose. Nevertheless, the defense now established a crucial fact. Which is... well, we know that 1 bullet was fired from each of the 2 firearms we have in evidence. The bullet from the Skulkin brothers' gun hit the pouch around Mr. Sholm's waist. And the bullet from Mr. Windybank's gun clearly must have been the one that caught Mr. Graydon on the arm.
Indeed, it must. We can't rule out the possibility that the man shot himself.
Ketchup as medicine, dang. And that leads us to only one conclusion. Mr. Windybank was shot by a third gun, which can only have been fired by the third intruder.
Goodness.
That's right, Mr. Graydon. Ugh. The only person who could possibly have shot Mr. Windybank that night is you!
Hold it!
Sir, how are you gonna worm your way out of this? Sir, you're very handsome, but sir... You little upstart. You made a grave mistake when you summoned me here. What? What's that supposed to mean? Yes, as you rightly say, I was there at the pawnbroker's. I did my best to hide the fact, naturally. I had no intention of ruining the distinguished career I built for myself at the communications station. But did the thought never cross your mind? Did you never consider the possibility? What do you mean? What thought? What possibility? The possibility that if I was there at the scene, I may have witnessed the crucial moment. You see, this makes me a key witness in this case, and I have my hands firmly around the neck of your client. What?
Are you suggesting?
I saw it all. I saw the very moment that pickpocket girl pointed the gun at that poor defenseless pawnbroker and shot him. You... What?
Order! Well, it would seem we are finally entering the last act of this theatrical trial.
Mr. Graydon. Yes? I trust you are fully aware of the implications here. If it is shown that your claim is false, you will have incriminated yourself as the killer. Oh, I understand fully.
Then I must ask you to give your formal testimony once more. You will explain to the court precisely what you saw at the moment of the defendant allegedly shot the victim.
Nothing would give me greater pleasure. Sir, stop digging a hole. Please. I have nothing to present during this thing, but it's okay. I'm about to get Deus Ex Machina'd. While these ruffians were jostling with the broker, I was still near the entrance to the shop. When Windybank threw Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I pursued the man, but he shut himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door, though. The accused, in black coat, shot the man in the back as he was trying to flee to safety. A peephole, you said? I saw the blood splatter all over that wretched girl. Maybe Sholmes was right. He really was digging a hole. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape. A peephole, you say?
Good gracious, this is quite extraordinary testimony. You claim, sir, on oath, to have clearly seen the defendant pulling the trigger.
Bing, bing, bing.
Order!
It wasn't my intention to testify in this way. But neither is my intention to be found guilty of a murder I didn't commit. So you see, my hand has been forced. I tell the truth now as an act of self-preservation. Sir, you should have just... If you weren't the murderer... Okay, if you weren't the murderer, you should have already said that to the beginning then, sir. The truth? Until now, the prosecution was completely unaware of these details.
Yes, well, sorry about that.
Having shot me in the arm, the pawnbroker was then shot in the back by the accused. This is so much. This guy is so much. And as I said, she was showered in his blood. You say the blood spattered over the accused's coat. Are you sure on that point? Oh yes, quite sure. This guy is also dirty. He knows there's blood on the coat. But we all know the blood doesn't belong to the shop owner. But unfortunately, Sherlock's things won't work. All over the black overcoat that pickpocket girl was wearing at the time.
Really? If a coat could somehow be shown to harbor vestiges of blood, that would be conclusive evidence there.
Sir! Such an investigation is entirely possible, my lord.
What?
Only very recently, a German scientist has developed a technique to identify human blood. So here's to true science, not some amateurish detective's dubious foray into the world of chemistry.
There's nothing dubious about Hurley's work. His ideas are all sound.
Ideas are no use to us here. In science, as in law, theories must be proven before they stand. In Germany, the technique has already been employed in the courtroom as the basis of evidence. Scotland Yard has a small quantity of the chemical reagent used, with your lordship's permission. We could shatter all vestiges of doubt within minutes.
This doesn't look good, Bruno.
Why not?
Well, we know, don't we, that there's blood all over the front of Ginny's coat. If they test it with their chemicals...
Oh, help, you're right. I was forgetting what happened yesterday. This is bad.
Don't move, Ginny. I'm going to shoot. Boink.
But that's not Mr. Windybank's blood. That stain is from 2 months ago. That's Mr. Mason's blood from where he was stabbed by McGilded, who was wearing the coat at the time. My lord, the defense objects to the test proposed by the prosecution.
Overruled. Lord Van Zeeks, make it so at once.
With pleasure, my lord.
And while we await the results, the defense may proceed with the cross-examination.
Oh! Once they find that blood on the overcoat, Gina will be...
Counsel!
Yes, my lord.
Your cross-examination.
Of course, my lord. If this cross-examination doesn't go well, if I don't manage to uncover some decisive evidence or a really compelling clue now, I have a very bad feeling about the outcome of this trial. Poisoning? What?
Hold it!
Mr. Windybank emerged from the storeroom, I believe. Ringo and Nash were scouring the counter when he suddenly appeared and flew at them. He already had the revolver in his hand. Fortunately, I wasn't too close.
I've never seen so scared in all my life. Yeah, we're just regular, mild-mannered burglars, that's all. We don't like violence.
Then why'd you bring a gun? Says the pair who carry a gun. Thank you, Naruto. What do you mean when you say you were near the entrance to the shop? I was in the doorway, running my eyes over the shelves of forfeited items. Looking for the music box, of course. The broker went with Nash in the first place. Then Ringo joined in, making it 2 against 1. So I assumed they could handle the situation. But I was wrong.
I was trying to help my little bruv, but the gold geezer chucked me over the blooming counter. So I pulled me gun on the old fella, and that soon made him scarper. The pair of you setting upon the poor defenseless pawnbroker together. Shame on you. Sorry, Gov.
Hold it!
You mean that's the moment you were shot? Yes, though I didn't immediately realize what had happened, of course. The things crashed to the floor. Things crashed to the floor from the counter as the 3 were brawling. 3 men. It was at exactly that moment that it happened, so I didn't hear the gunshot. And the bullet went on to strike the calendar in the wall behind you. So it would appear. When I looked at my arm, I saw it was bleeding badly, so I wrapped my handkerchief around it. Seeing as I couldn't explain what had happened to a doctor, I had no choice but to wait for it to heal. I didn't imagine it would still be bleeding 2 days later. I mean, you didn't get it checked properly, so of course it is. Did Mr. Winniebank intend to shoot you, do you think? Well now. I don't imagine he even noticed I was there, to be honest. Perhaps the gun went off accidentally. Anyway, it didn't quite strike home.
When I pulled me gun on him, he tried to shove me out the way. And then he scampered through the door out back. At which point, what did you do?
Oh, interesting. I've learned something today about tomatoes. And lead.
Hold it!
Don't put them together. You mean you chased after him? I don't recall the reason why, but I ran after him to the back of the shop. And what about this peephole in the door you mentioned?
Well, unsurprisingly, the storeroom's door is a solid job, made of stout wood. But there's a small opening in it, about head height, that lets you see what's in there from the inside.
Actually, I should know that, shouldn't I? I looked through it myself that night. And what about your burgling brothers? Did you see what went on through this peephole as well?
Not likely, Gov. Didn't see nothing of the sort, Gov.
I doubt these two buffoons were even aware of the peephole's existence. So the Skokin brothers were there, but they didn't see the killing of Mr. Winniebank take place. Inside the storeroom, I could see the broker and that young girl standing there.
The defendant.
Yes, though none of them noticed that I was looking. The girl raised her gun and pointed it straight at the man.
And then, what did you see next?
Hold it!
Yes, when the crime was discovered, the defendant was found with a gun in her hand. But that was Mr. Winniebank's gun, from which only a single bullet had been fired. And as we've already established, Mr. Graydon, that bullet was fired at you. Ah, but no, it wasn't the broker's gun that the pickpocket girl had when I saw her. Yes, the bullet from Winniebank's gun grazed my arm, and yes, the Skokin's gun grounded the detective. But this was another gun entirely, a third gun. The broker's gun was not the murder weapon, so clearly there had to be a third firearm involved. In other words, the accused must have had her own gun with her at the time. That sounds stupid. Bro, come on. That sounds stupid. Please. But no other gun was found at the scene. Calm yourself, counsel. Sorry? You must consider the events in order. At first I saw the broker and the girl glaring at each other, but then, all of a sudden, the broker turned to run. And it was at that moment that the little gutter rat shot him in the back.
A chilling image, I must say.
Hold it!
All over her? Yes, through the peephole I saw it clearly. Of course, the stains are invisible now, what with the coat being such a darker color. But I assure you, that garment is sullied with the victim's blood. Well, it is sullied with blood, that's for sure.
But it's not Mr. Winniebank's blood, is it?
No, that's right. It's Mr. Mason Milverton's blood, from when McGilded stabbed him 2 months ago.
It's so annoying. If they only accept Hurley's chemical analysis, we could prove that.
But they won't, so unfortunately we can't use it as evidence to support our case.
Bother.
Did I hear you correctly? She threw the gun out of the room? That's right. After the broker fell to the floor, she started walking over.
Over where exactly?
In the direction of the storeroom door, to where I was watching. Of course, I quickly retreated, and then the girl dropped the gun through the peephole onto the floor on my side of the door.
But why on earth would she do such a thing?
I couldn't tell you. Perhaps she was hoping to distance herself from the murder weapon. Without thinking, I went and picked it up.
Okay, where is it?
I suppose I was worried about just leaving it there, in case any more tragedies took place.
Where's this gun then?
So it was you, in fact, who took the third gun from the scene of the crime. Yes, it was yours truly.
Huh.
Boy, I wish ballistic markings were a thing back then. I left the clear-up to my lackeys and left. Clear-up?
We made a bit of a mess around the counter, so Mr. Whistle and Flute here told us to tidy up. He thinks I'm bloomin' mum sometimes. He's our bloomin' mum.
Well, I was paying you enough, by God.
Ugh.
Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbrokery that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket?
You little toe rag!
What is going on there? But I admit to nothing of the sort. After all, you can't even show the court such a disc exists, can you? As expected. He won't admit to anything unless I can thrust the evidence in his face. It's not as easy as you thought, is it? To pin a crime on this label. It won't stick. Not murder. Not treason. Are you guys okay? Maybe not right now, but you won't be sniggering like that forever.
What's your feeling, Runo?
As much as I hate to admit it, I don't see any obvious holes in his testimony at the moment.
But you have to find a way to break this man.
And quickly, too, because once they discovered the blood on the overcoat Gina was wearing.
It's a bit strange that he's so sure of himself about seeing the blood spatter over Ginny's coat. It doesn't strike me as the sort of thing you'd claim if you hadn't genuinely seen it happen.
But we know that Gina didn't shoot Mr. Winniebank. So what's going on?
All I know is that it's very unfair. Why should some German scientist test be acceptable as evidence when mine and Hurley's wasn't? Detectives can use test tubes too.
Never mind that. I have to find a really stark inconsistency in this testimony somewhere. And I have to find it before the prosecution discovers the blood stain on Gina's coat.
Hold it! You little toe rag! Excuse me!
Gentlemen!
Something wrong, Sunshine?
That should be my line. You do realize you were just violently shaking Mr. Sulkin?
Blimey, he's a bit on his hooligan, ain't he?
Ugh. What was going on just now?
You saw him. He grabbed my whistle. What the blazes, he said. Didn't you mention the third gun when we got you down the station?
And why didn't you?
'Cause we didn't know nothing about it, or that flaming peephole in the door. Sorry about that. I can be prone to losing my rag sometimes. Not hurt, are you? Gregson, what the frick? God blimey, seeing the way he's looking at me, I'm telling you, this dude gives me the willies.
That was strange. The inspector doesn't normally get quite as worked up as that. He wouldn't normally grab someone.
No, that wasn't like Gregsy at all. He's normally all sweetness and light, no matter what I say to him.
That's just you! Yes, well, I think you might be a special case, Iris.
Well, anyway, that was definitely out of character.
Sir!
My lord! Requesting your lordship's permission to interrupt the cross-examination. Explain yourself, officer. I have the results of the test that was ordered earlier, my lord.
Ah, the blood on the accused's overcoat.
Thank you, officer. Very well. The cross-examination is hereby temporarily suspended. I presume you have no objection, counsel.
No, my lord. We're in trouble.
Well, there you have it.
The report, please, Inspector.
Yes, sir. Traces of human blood were found on the overcoat of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. From the extent of the stains, it would appear that they were the result of spattering following a gunshot wound. End of report. Goodness me! Rubble, 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 rubble.
I need twirls!
See? What did I tell you?
Where's this third gun? No, the blood on that coat is not Mr. Windybanks.
What on earth makes you say that, counsel?
The coat originally belonged to Magnus McGilded. Just before his coat was deposited at Windybanks, McGilded had fatally stabbed Mr. Mason Milverton. So the blood on that overcoat is the blood of the brickmaker from the omnibus case.
Objection!
Well, the dead cannot speak. Isn't that right, my Nipponese friend? Sorry? 2 months ago in this very courtroom, did you not argue fervently for McGilded's innocence? And yet now that the man is dead, you brand him as a murderer. Your conduct shatters any shred of respect you may have earned for yourself in this country. But that was...
I call it bally disgrace. Treachery, that's what it is.
How to determine whether the blood on that coat is 2 months old or not? Even a stereoscope couldn't help to answer that problem pop out. It can't be done. But we used Mr. Sholmes' specially formulated...
Mr. Sholmes is a detective, not a chemist.
Would you put such faith in the chemical formula devised by me, for example, when I'm a communications officer?
I held out Prosky to starving boy, and he ran away crying. Herlock Sholmes is barely more than a figment of a public's imagination. His name carries no weight in this courtroom. No weight at all.
How could you say that?
Victory is sweet indeed. This proves that my testimony is the whole truth from start to finish.
Well, why didn't you say that in the first place, huh? How did you arrive at such a conclusion, sir?
As the witness said, the accused was spattered with the blood of the victim. The only way Mr. Graydon could possibly have known that fact is if he saw it happen. In other words, his testimony is solid, and the conclusion is singular. It was the accused who shot the victim in this case. That is the whole truth.
Ah! Wobble, 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 wobble. My lord! It's been a long battle, this one, but this old warhorse has something to say now, if you please. Mr. Foreman? As of this moment, sir, the squadron has reached its final decision. Ready, men and women? All for one now. Sir!
Guilty.
No!
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Stress. Naruto stress.
Well, it would appear the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have reached a unanimous verdict.
That is SIP number 11? The defense has consistently failed to unpick this witness's testimony. Here's to an attempt you may make at unpicking the juror's decision being equally successful. We're in trouble. I don't believe it. After I've come so far, how is it all unraveling on me so fast? How very distressing to be held in such low esteem. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo?
Officer? You've delivered the report now. That will be all, thank you. It occurs to me with some regularity, Mr. Naruhodo, that scientific truths are determined not by science, but by none other than the human mind.
I know that voice. Sherlock being the Deus Ex Machina. Am I going mad? Oh! Hello, Sherlock! Looking great with the mustache. Mr. Sholmes!
What is the meaning of this?
Hello!
Order, order, order!
What business do you have here, Detective? The last I heard, you were recuperating in hospital.
As well I would be, had I not been set upon an errand.
What errand?
Hurley, it's really you. You're awake at last.
Yes, good day, Iris. I appear to be rather late to rise. My apologies. Now, my lord, if you will humor me. In what matter, sir?
Fun fact, they were trying to, when they make Chronicles, they were trying to get a DLC outfit for Herlock, being the Inspector outfit that you see right there. They wanted to make the Inspector outfit a DLC outfit. They also wanted to make Ryotaro's outfit as a DLC outfit, but unfortunately they just didn't have the time or the resources to include it in.
I have something of great importance I wish to give to the young lawyer over there. I need no more than 5 minutes. Would you be so kind as to spare us the time? What say you to this, Lord Fanseeks?
No. This trial has taken many hours of the court's time, having spent so long already.
Exactly! Having spent so long already, we don't want to go wasting any more precious time.
As I was saying, having spent so long already, it would seem churlish to deny the defense a mere 5 minutes.
Very well then. Counsel, you have 5 minutes.
Hello, Herlock! My dear fellow, I apologize for my tardy arrival. No, your timing's perfect. Mr. Sholmes, are you alright now?
Alright, I'm all wrong.
Sorry?
I've only just managed to summon the strength to stand, man. I asked the judge for 5 minutes. But I fear even that may prove too much for me. Pray forgive me should I pass out.
Let's make this discussion as short as possible.
Hurley, this place is full of idiots. None of them can see how wonderful your chemical blood analysis is.
Iris speaking as it is, saying as it is.
Ah, well, that concoction of mine was really just a bit of sport to assist me in my investigations. I never took the trouble to refine it for appraisal by the scientific community. An oversight on my part.
Right. Modesty? Surely not.
But enough of that. I'm here to give you this, my dear fellow.
What's that? A lavender furoshiki wrapping.
A leaving present from Miss Susato.
From Miss Susato?
If possible, matters were to be settled without me giving you this. Those were her instructions when she asked me to do her this favor.
I don't understand.
Miss Susato foresaw today's events, I believe. She knew that the culprit would attempt to escape justice by means both devious and underhand, and that you, Mr. Naruhodo, fighting fairly as you are, would find yourself in considerable peril. At the very moment of crisis, you were to be given this small parcel. Those were the dear lady's instructions.
A leaving present from Miss Susato. Whatever could it be? Hello. What is this?
Oh! It's the machine I made. Kitty! Look, I use this. It's my latest invention.
What is that?
I call it the cat flapomat. It can make a cat flap for a little furry friend like Waggy in seconds.
I love that every time Wakahai shows up, we just all stop and just go ooh-woo because we can't get over this cat. They animated the cat so cutely.
What's Susie up to?
Miss Susato murdered the following words before she left. I'm a failure. I don't deserve to be a judicial assistant. What? Did she say something like that? You really are the best judicial assistant in the world.
Well, that's extremely flattering. But I'm sorry to say that I've been a complete failure.
Whatever does she mean by that, Mr. Sholmes? That night, when you left Windybanks in pursuit of the thieves, Mr. Sato made use of this contraption for a certain purpose. That is your answer, dear fellow. Not at all cryptic, then. Susato-san used this cat flapomat that night. But why? Cat flapomat. A compact machine for the rapid creation of small flaps and large doors to allow cats to come and go freely. Is it just for cats? Your 5 minutes is over. We're out of time already? It's okay, Naruhodo, I got you. I know what we gotta present. Go and rest, Herlock, please. I'm grateful to you for affording us that brief recess, Mr. Reaper. I need no thanks, Detective. After all, the die is cast.
Is it really?
The jurors are unanimous in their leanings. No doubt my learned friend will consider a summation examination. But any attempt to alter the verdict now would be utterly futile.
I wonder. Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes.
The rest is down to you, dear fellow. What is your plan?
The rest is down to me. I need to be careful here. If I make the wrong move, the trial will end badly. We don't need a summation. My lord, the defense request. Further cross-examination, please. Further cross-examination.
Objection!
The jurors have spoken. Protocol dictates that you may not cross-examine a new witness now.
Objection!
The defense is not asking for the cross-examination of a new witness. Rather, to continue with an existing witness. What?
It would appear that a rather important detail has escaped your attention, Mr. Reaper. My lord, requesting your lordship's permission to interrupt the cross-examination. Thank you, officer. Very well. The cross-examination is hereby temporarily suspended. I presume you have no objection, counsel.
No, my lord.
So nobody can say anything then? If we're not asked to resume his cross-examination of Mr. Graydon, the court is obliged to allow it.
This is absurd.
I will remind those present that this is my courtroom. I concur that the defense is entirely within its right to request the continuation of the cross-examination. However, I will not permit an unremitting protraction of these proceedings. Therefore, I have decided to afford the defense one final opportunity in concluding the cross-examination.
Counsel, you must choose but one statement from the witness's testimony, and but one piece of evidence to present in support of your argument against it.
A single chance to present evidence?
If following that the situation remains unchanged, I shall move to adjudication. Is that clear, counsels? You will not press the witness any further.
My lord. Yes, my lord.
I don't need to press. I know what I gotta do. A single statement and a single piece of evidence. Most generous. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, it's high time I fell in a dead faint. I leave this in your capable hands.
He flails as he falls. Mr. Sholmes! My lord, help the man!
To stand so insouciantly before the court in a state of such high fever. Either the man has extraordinary strength of mind or an extraordinary lack of feeling.
I imagine he's feeling very little now. The detective is sleeping soundly in one of the antechambers. Strike a man when he's down, why don't you?
Well then, counsel, are you fully prepared?
Yes. One statement, one piece of evidence. I won't let Mr. Sholmes down, or Iris. And I won't waste this final chance that Susato-san has given me. This is going to decide the entire outcome of the trial.
Very well then. Under the terms I have outlined, you may resume the cross-examination.
I am exhausted, by the way. Oh, wrong thing. I presented the wrong thing. God, why did I do that? That reveals a damning inconsistency, that last statement. I'm in trouble.
Damning, you say? As I look at you, counsel, I see your trembling hand, your pallid expression, and your perspiring brow.
Huh?
It seems to me that is a damning inconsistency here, with the misplaced confidence of your assertion.
Sorry. Ugh, he has a damning tongue.
You invited, sir.
I'm dumb. I don't know why that looked like the freaking cat flapper-mat. And I also should have just gone the other way instead of the long way around. Oh, there we go.
What on earth is that eccentric contraption, counsel?
Okay, give me 1 second. Oh my god, this trial is so long and I'm so tired. Oh god, you know what's even worse? There's an epilogue we gotta get through.
Oh, it's my cat flapple mat, my lord. It makes a way for cats to get in and out of the room. It can cut through any door you can think of and make a little door in the middle of it.
That's right, my lord. It's a device for creating so-called cat flaps. Small doors for cats to come and go as they please, without their owners having to open the... I'm sure we can all work that out ourselves. But that cat lover's contrivance has no possible relevance to this case.
Oh, yes, it does.
Oh, really? Of course it doesn't. To start with, there was no cat flap in the pawnbroker's door. Yes, there was.
Not being a keeper of cats myself, I'm afraid I fail to see what this has to do with the matter at hand.
Perhaps it would help if I describe its function another way, then. This contraption is able to create a peephole in any door you can imagine in practically no time at all.
I beg your pardon? A peephole, you say?
2 nights ago, we arrived at the scene only minutes after the murder of Mr. Winniebank had taken place.
That's right. According to the paperwork at the yard, it was you, your Japanese assistant, and Sholmes.
Yes, the 3 of us were together, and it's recently come to my attention that my assistant made use of this device at the time.
Your assistant did what?
There was a peephole in the storeroom door. I can attest to that. Because I looked through the peephole myself in order to see inside the locked storeroom. This is ludicrous. What are you trying to say? Of course there was a peephole in the door. I said as much in my testimony. How else could I have witnessed the crime, for pity's sake? Because there was no peephole before. You just admitted to, never mind. You get what I mean. I'm trying to say and I can't. Yes. How could you? What?
Counsel, kindly say what you mean.
All right. It's time. Time to strike the final blow. What I mean is this, my lord. My assistant made the peephole in the storeroom door, and until such time as she did, the door had no hole in it to look through. What? No! Nice twirl, buddy.
Objection!
This is a farce. Are you really suggesting that the peephole in the door was? Yes, it was created only after the incident had taken place, by my judicial assistant using this device.
Your assistant tampered with the crime scene, whilst being fully aware of the gravity of her actions. This is the most serious act of vandalism.
For which I humbly apologize, my lord. It was in the few minutes that I left the scene in order to pursue the Skulkin brothers and alert the police. Nevertheless, in light of this new information, it becomes apparent that Mr. Graydon's testimony is riddled with holes.
Riddled with... Explain yourself, counsel.
The majority of Mr. Graydon's testimony that appears to incriminate the defendant is based upon what he witnessed through the peephole in the storeroom door. Yes, that filthy girl shooting the man in the back. However, if at the time of the incident, that peephole did not yet exist in the door, there's no possible way that you could have seen what you claim to have seen. In short, your entire testimony is a pack of lies.
Order! Is there any credits in this relevance?
Objection!
Yes, I have pictures. None whatsoever, as my learned friend most surely realized. Exactly. This is just some cheap trick designed to discredit me. I'm afraid not, sir. Of course it is. Do you seriously expect people to believe that plaything can cut through a solid wooden door?
Oh yes, I designed it to be very powerful. It can cut through even the toughest of doors.
That's absurd. I don't believe it for a second.
Huh, I had a feeling you'd say that.
What?
Waggy! Cooey! Come for dinner! Meow.
Aw, you're so cute! Who's a good kitty? Who's a good waggy?
Well,
Young lady, this is the Old Bailey. One does not make cat flaps in the oak paneling at the Old Bailey.
Hey, look, we were just proving a point. I'm not done yet. Don't worry. This doesn't mean that the peephole in the storeroom door at Windybanks was made by your machine. And there's no way you could prove that it was.
no, but it's easy.
What?
The cat flaps my cat flapper-mat creates are all of a fixed size. And the dimensions of the peephole at Windybanks are an exact match. Hee, old Silky's lost for words.
Excellent work, Iris. Thank you. And now it's my learned student's friend's turn to be lost for words, I feel. I believe your judicial assistant has already left the country for your Eastern Island home. Well, yes, that's true. Then you may have some difficulty in establishing all of the facts. For the sake of argument, let us assume the peephole has dimensions that are a perfect fit for this contraption. In that case, when was the peephole cut? The prosecution demands proof of your answer.
What is the purpose of your line of inquiry, Lord Manzeeks?
It's very simple, my lord. The defendant argues that the peephole was created after the incident using this device. But now that the perpetrator has returned to her native land, she cannot testify to the fact. There is no proof. And for as long as the defense remains unable to prove when the peephole was made, my learned friend's claim amounts to nothing more than a baseless accusation. What? It's okay, we have it.
Indeed, that is so, Lord Manzeeks. Well, counsel?
Don't give up now, Runo. This is the time to create your own opening and force your way through.
I don't know if I can do this, but I do know one thing. Susato-san is the greatest judicial assistant in the world. Heck yeah, she is!
Very well. The counsel for the defense will present evidence to support the claim made. Proof that the peephole in the door of Windybank's storeroom was created after the event and not before.
Take that!
What are you? A print from the detective's Inferno cameras again. My judicial assistant, Miss Susato Mikatoba, is an extremely intelligent and capable woman, which is why I never had any cause to doubt that she would have considered this scenario and made sure I had the necessary proof.
And the necessary proof is this photographic print, counsel.
This print shows a scene in the shop moments after the defendant entered the premises. Agreed. And it also shows the accused mercilessly wielded a gun in the direction of the defenseless broker. But more to the point. Please look at the door, damn it! In pictures, it pictures the storeroom door in the background.
Let me see that print again. I don't believe it. This really is quite remarkable. The door to the storeroom is completely devoid of a peephole of any description.
Mr. Graydon! You couldn't possibly have witnessed the crime as you claim to have done, because at the time it happened, there was no peephole in the door. In other words, your testimony is a catalog of lies. What a dramatic spin.
Order! 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 I am satisfied that the defense has substantiated its claim beyond all reasonable doubt. This witness's testimony was entirely fallacious. Fallacious.
That's not the only thing we now know beyond all reasonable doubt. My learned friend's assistant's guilt can no longer be denied. The woman tampered with the crime scene. Yeah, well, she's not here, so you can't do anything about it. But more importantly...
Good lord, there's more, Lord Manzeeks?
The defense may have established a reprehensible instance of perjury. Now is really not the time, sir! But that is no proof that this man is the victim's killer. Yes, that's right. What? I was there at the scene. It's true. And I was shot in the arm. It's true. But that's all. Sir, you're not looking good. Yes, in fact, if you look at the circumstances, I am the victim here. Oh, please. No! I don't believe this. But they're right. As it stands now, I don't have any definitive proof that he is the culprit.
Still, he can't worm his way out of it now.
Iris?
You know what they say? There's no point locking the cat's door after the cat has bolted. Isn't that right, Runo? As Hurley always says, one lie begets another. No, wait. That might have been a line I wrote for him in one of my stories.
Well, no matter who said it first, you're right. Mr. Graydon, not only did you give false testimony to the court, but the lies you told make no sense. Make no sense? What do you mean by that? By such a remark? What you said in your testimony reveals that you know something you shouldn't have known. In other words, there is a fundamental inconsistency in your statements. What?
Objection!
This is provocative talk, counsel. Won't you enlighten the court? Explain this alleged inconsistency. Iris was right. One lie begets another. Wait, what am I presenting? The inconsistency is revealed by the lies in the witnesses' statements. They show that Mr. Graydon had knowledge of something he shouldn't have known anything about. Namely, the bloodstains on the coat. The bloodstains on the coat! Right! Okay, I was like, what am I doing? The bloodstains that were present on Miss Lestrade's coat. That's right. The victim's blood splattered all over her when she shot him. But how could you possibly have known that? Obviously, because I saw her do it through the peephole in the... Yeah! How did you know, sir? Hee, I'm smart. No. The point is not that you lied in your testimony, Mr. Graydon. It's the nature of the lie you concocted that is so revealing. You're not making any sense. Then let me ask you a simple question. How is it, Mr. Graydon, that you knew of the existence of the peephole in the storeroom door? What? Well, obviously You talked to Mr. Gregson!
Has the cat got your tongue, witness?
The peephole in the door was made after the incident occurred. And once I returned to the shop having failed to catch the two burglars, Scotland Yard's investigators arrived immediately. And since that time, the police have been at Windybanks constantly, carrying out their investigation. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Gregson!
Well, of course. The place is chock full of pawn articles, and my lads have to thoroughly examine them all.
Great, done it! So I gave the order to have officers working around the clock in shifts so we can get through it all. And consequently, there's no way that you, Mr. Graydon, could have gained access to the shop. Therefore, you should have known nothing about the peephole in the storeroom door. So the fact that its existence forms the basis of your testimony is completely inexplicable.
Objection!
What is it now, Baroque? And yet, the fact remains that Mr. Graydon did maintain that he witnessed the crime take place through the peephole in the door.
How on earth is that possible? Could I have a word, please, Lord Van Zeeks?
Speak, Inspector.
It's just that I really ought to be getting back to the station now to put in my report.
Gregson! No! You stand right there at the witness stand, you little piece of shit.
There's really nothing more I can add to this testimony, so if it's all the same to you...
Permission denied. Thank you, Baroque!
Oh.
It's not all the same to me, Inspector. Not at all. You will remain exactly where you are until this trial concludes.
Of course, sir.
Mr. Graydon. You shouldn't have known about the existence of that peephole.
Oh, fiddle crips.
Which can only mean that you must have been informed about it by somebody else.
Objection!
Stop there, my learned friend. You realize, I trust, that the words you just uttered have extremely serious implications. Yes, but the defense believes that the details about the case that Mr. Graydon claims to have seen must have been revealed to him by a certain person before his testimony. And in fact, considering a particular clue we have, there's really only one person that could be.
Who is the person in question, counsel? Who gave this witness details of the crime scene to facilitate his false testimony?
Gregson!
Take that!
The truth is, it can only have been you, Inspector Gregson.
Eh? Me?
Objection!
You had better have some proof to substantiate such a rash claim, my learned friend. Consider the fact that we have only been aware of Mr. Ashley Graydon's identity for the last few hours. We learned of it only during the course of the trial today.
Indeed, but preparations for his testimony were made with great urgency during our hour-long recess. The police executed the subpoena and brought the man here from the communication station.
And until that time, Mr. Graydon would have had no idea, no inkling that he would suddenly be required to appear in court.
Are you suggesting that until such time as he was summoned?
Yes, my lord. Until then, it's reasonable to assume he knew nothing of the peephole. It was only once Mr. Graydon was in the stand that he realized his position, that he would have to defend himself against the accusations that he was the third intruder. You're suggesting to the court that it was while this trial was in progress that he received the information, so that he could commit perjury in order to save his skin. Exactly. And the only person with knowledge of the investigation that he had any contact with is you, Inspector Gregson.
This is bloomin' outrage! Why would I be giving away details of our investigation to this fella, eh?
I don't know, maybe because you might have a second disc you're looking for?
I was summoned to his lordship chambers during the recess in any case. Had you forgotten that? Quite true. I had a number of questions regarding the events that transpire at the pawnbrokery.
Which means that the first time these two laid eyes on one another was after proceedings resumed, following the recess. Since then, they've been in full view in the stand, where such illicit discussions couldn't possibly have occurred.
Oh, I just remember something, Runa.
What is it, Iris?
There was one time before, wasn't there? I think it was when Ginny was testifying.
Oh yes, now you mention it. When the bailiff was dispatched to retrieve Miss Gilder's music box from the scene of the crime. That's it! It was during that testimony. I remember finding it strange at the time. Mr. Graydon and the inspector seemed to be having some kind of secret discussion. It would have been possible for you to give Mr. Graydon the information he needed then.
You little toe rag! You're making all this up! I'm a respectable Scotland Yard inspector, for crying out loud! Why would I do something like that? Why would I give away confidential details to the likes of this bloke?
Admittedly, you wouldn't have had any reason to do something like that for no gain. But perhaps it was part of a deal of some kind. Then it starts to make more sense. What deal, counsel? I wonder if perhaps in exchange for details about the peephole at the crime scene, Mr. Graydon agreed to give a certain something to the inspector.
I am sure I need not remind the inspector that, if found to be true, striking a deal of any kind with the witness would be considered a gross case of malfeasance.
Malfeasance? Malfeasance. Well,
Objection!
It's becoming clear that jumping in with accusations is his Nipponese student's specialty. I don't do that. But with the stakes so high, the prosecution is not prepared to listen to baseless charges. It is incumbent on the defense now to present evidence in support of this diabolical claim. Evidence? Just what are you proposing that the inspector demanded of the witness in return? Malfeasance, okay. The court must see proof of this alleged deal. I'm okay. I'm so tired. This case is dragging just like Tree Man from Investigation 1, except it's better. But also, dang, it's so long. If the Inspector Gregson really did strike a deal with Mr. Graydon, then logically, there's only one thing he could have asked for. That must be it.
Bruno, do you think it could be?
Yes. It's the missing link that would join all the dots together in this puzzle.
I must press you for an answer now, counsel. What evidence explains the nature of the alleged deal that Inspector made with the witness?
Take that!
Inspector Gregson, besides this murder, is it not true that you've been working on another very important case?
What? What are you getting at now, Sunshine?
Is it possible that this other top-secret case is what's alluded to in this newspaper article here? The classified secrets being leaked overseas from the Ministry of Justice.
How the bleeding Nora could you...
We discovered during the course of this trial the music box deposited at Windybanks by Magnus McGilded. A special music box designed to play 2 discs at once. It would seem very likely now, sorry, I just saw the fish and chips. Very likely now that encoded on the pair of discs that were in McGilded's possessions are the leaked classified secrets. So I put it to you, Inspector, that in order to recover the second of the discs containing those secrets, you covertly made a deal with Mr. Graydon in which you exchanged the discs for details of the case.
You little... Ah! Order!
On the day of the incident, when we met you at Windybanks, you said this.
I'll be taking whatever it is of McGilded's down to the yard, thank you very much. So hand it over.
No, don't. Don't give it to him. It's mine. That is, mine.
I'm sorry, miss. But anything belonging to McGilded has to be taken in as evidence now.
Scotland Yard already knew at that time, isn't that right? That Magnus McGilded was involved in stealing of government secrets.
My orders were, recover the medium used to convey the secrets leaked from the ministry, and do it on the cutie. Strictly hush-hush.
And that explains why, when I presented this disc as evidence to the court, you objected so heavily, I presume. Because you knew that it contained highly confidential information.
Blimey, not likely. I mean, I wasn't sure of it myself. I realized there was a possibility, that's all. Inspector, surely you're not saying that in order to acquire the second of these music box discs, you did indeed reveal confidential details of the crime scene to the witness, to aid and abet this man in giving false testimony.
There's no other way that Mr. Graydon could have known the existence of the peephole. It's the only explanation. A deal was struck between these two men.
No! Ah!
God, these two.
Objection!
If, and I stress if, this sobering assertion turns out to be founded in truth, it would mean that the second disc is, as we speak, here in this very courtroom.
Wait, what?
In this room? How could you possibly make a claim like that? Because Inspector Gregson is a Scotland Yard detective.
What? What's that supposed to mean, eh?
As a seasoned policeman, the inspector will have approached this alleged deal with caution. Certainly he would not have accepted a gentleman's agreement in this matter. No, he would have insisted on having the article agreed upon in the palm of his hand.
Good gracious, then you mean to say Inspector Gregson already has the item in question in his possession? He has the second disc already on his person.
Yes!
That was good! Yes! Whoever decided to put yes there was good. The defense demands that the inspector is searched at once. No, wait, don't search the inspector.
Definitely. They could only have struck the deal with each other when Ginny was testifying here. And Gregsy hasn't moved from the witness stand since.
My lord, please, order examination of his personal effects immediately.
Well, Inspector? This young lad wants to tone down his imagination. He's insulted me and my profession quite enough. Huh? However, if it'll put this matter to bed and dispel any doubts about my involvement, then I'll happily submit to a body search.
You don't have it anymore, buddy.
What? He's going to agree to it.
I presume you're aware of the precipice on which you now teeter, my learned student friend. You've made a most serious allegation against Scotland Yard here. If, following the search of the inspector's personal effects, no disc is found, you will be deemed unfit for court service. This trial will end, and my country's government will formally demand of yours that you are severely reprimanded. That sounds serious.
Indeed. To have a visiting student make such defamatory remarks about our country's most senior police force is not something Her Majesty's government will be able to overlook.
You're just threatening Luna because you're scared.
Iris, calling it like it is. The accusation is beyond serious. You must be prepared for grave consequences. It's true. I can't imagine Gregson would have accepted a gentleman's agreement for something so critical. The disc must have physically changed hands, which means the inspector should have it. But somehow, something doesn't feel quite right here.
Very well, counsel, you know the implications, so let me ask you one final time.
Yes, my lord.
Do you still persist in formally requesting a search of the inspector's personal effects?
I'm going to say yes because I actually have never seen this, so I want to see what happens. Yes, the defense demands that Inspector Gregson is searched at once.
Very well. Are you ready to proceed, Inspector? Be my guest, sir.
Search everyone! Do I, get a game over if I search, Gregson or what? And so a brief body search was carried out by the court bailiff. A few short minutes later, it was revealed that the inspector had nothing unusual on his person at all. Ah!
Just as I thought.
What?
Well, you heard Gregsy before. He almost invited the search. It was obvious that we wouldn't find anything.
Well, maybe consider mentioning things like that before I momentally put my foot in it next time.
Well, counsel, what do you have to say for yourself now?
Have you learned your lesson, or do you intend to embarrass more people in this courtroom? This is bad.
Do you still persist in formally requesting a search of the inspector's personal...
Wow, we could keep searching him. That's funny. Yes, the defense formally demands the search be conducted.
Well...
Don't say you weren't warned. But your typical Nipponese stubbornness may well land you in hot water this time. Perhaps the lesson will do you some good.
Fair enough. I've got nothing to hide. Very well, then. Bailiff, conduct a search of the inspector's personal...
Baby slaps! The baby slaps! The defense demands a search, but not of Inspector Gregson. What?
Now what's all this? I'm the one you're accusing, aren't I? I thought you wanted to search me.
No, Inspector, not you. Somebody else.
What's the meaning of all this, eh? Lost it at last, have you, Sunshine? The court shouldn't have to put up with this nonsense. You're being completely irrational.
Am I?
Am I, sir?
Be quiet, all of you.
Oh, Iris is speaking.
Rudolph's doing what you all told him to do and having the courage of his convictions. So you should respect that and listen to what he has to say in good faith. Because that's the British way. Bitches?
Well said, young lady. Indeed, this court is in awe of the defense's counsel's conviction and eagerly awaits his next words. You what? Now don't be hasty, my lord.
If I'm not mistaken about the things I've seen in court today, I'm fairly sure that I know who has that disc at the moment. There's only one person it can be.
Counsel, of whom you request this search now?
Take that!
Of my lord, Mr. Nash Skulkin.
Well, I never. Eh? Me? Him? Very well then, bailiff. Restrain the witness and conduct a thorough search of his personal effects. Please, my lord. Inspector? Scotland Yard, has to object to this search.
No, you can't.
Objection!
You can't. You have no power here, and Baroque's going to yell at you. Unfortunately for you, Inspector, your objections carry no weight here.
Eh?
In this courtroom, only the prosecution and the defense have the authority to object.
But Lord Van Zeeks!
I have no idea what forces are in play that might influence your actions. But personally, I have no intention of obstructing the course of this trial. Now shut up and stand there and eat your fish and chips.
Bailiff, carry out the search. Now, no moment. I don't know nothing. Nothing but no disc. Cut it out! Ah! Here, my lord, in the witness's pocket. I found this. Give me that disc. Give me that disc. Good lord, that's...
Another music box disc.
I don't know nothing about it. Nothing.
That is the second music box disc left behind by Magnus McGilded. Is it not, Inspector Gregson?
Ah! Order! Mr. Skulkin, what have you to say for yourself? Gordon Bennett, just Gordon Flaming Bennett. I swear I didn't know nothing about that disc, honest to God. Counsel, would you please explain what exactly is going on here? The alleged deal that was struck was between this witness and this detective, no?
Without question, my lord.
Then for pity's sake, why on earth was this man in possession of the disc that the inspector traded for information?
Inspector Grayson is a shrewd, calculating man who rarely loses his composure. But at one particular point in this trial, he exhibited some unusual behavior for a brief moment.
I don't recall. What unusual behavior?
It was, yes, during my cross-examination of Mr. Graydon. Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbrokery that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket? I admit to nothing of the sort. While Mr. Graydon answered my questions, the inspector appeared to have grabbed Nash Skulkin by his coat and was shaking him violently.
Yeah, he did it all. Thought me noggin was gonna fall clean off, I did. I was wishing I'd been born as me brother, I was.
And what exactly happened to make the detective attack you like that?
I ain't got a clue. He just suddenly turned and grabbed me whistle like that and started shaking me. Why the blazes did you mention the third gun when you got down the station? That's what he said. Yelled it right down my ear, oh he did. Me head's still throbbing now.
The way the detective behaved then was extremely out of character. But looking back now, it must have been then that he did it. That was the opportunity Inspector Gregson created for himself in order to hide the disc.
Well, bless my wig! He hid it! But I'm afraid I failed to comprehend the motive here. If the detective had acquired the disc he was after,
I just almost called him defective.
why on earth would he then proceed to hide it in another man's pocket? This is a court of law. He could have submitted the item as evidence.
It would appear, my lord, that the inspector was not at liberty to do that.
Why ever not?
As the man himself revealed earlier, his current assignment was some special conditions.
My orders were, recover the medium used to convey the secret leak from the ministry, and do it on the QT. Strictly hush-hush. Hush-hush? A top-secret assignment, is it?
As far as we're aware, the information stolen comes from confidential government communications. It would seem that if that information were to be revealed in court as evidence, it would be problematic. Does that sum up the situation, Inspector?
I'm operating under direct orders from the ministry. I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to answer that question.
So, realizing there was a chance that you may be searched here in court, you took steps to hide the disc you had acquired from the witness.
Oh, does this mean...
He only pretended to attack Mr. Shulkin in order to get close enough to him, to slip the second disc into his pocket.
So it was a pretense. All a pretense. Well now, Inspector Gregson, and you, Mr. Graydon. Are you prepared to admit to the accusations made against you of this alleged deal?
Admit to it. Yours truly. Please. Mr. Graydon! Clearly our Eastern visitor has an uncommonly active imagination. However, there's no proof that I passed that disc to the inspector.
Objection!
But then, how do you explain the reason why you knew about the peephole? I'm under no obligation to explain. What? Yes, I lied in my testimony. That I admit, so sentence me accordingly. But that is all I'll admit. Murder, leaking government secrets, striking a deal with the detective. All of it is this young Eastern man's fancy. I have no idea what any of that is about. You... What? Man, this guy doesn't know how to quit! Oh my goodness, I am tired with you, Naruhodo. I am tired with this man's shit. Well, what about you then, Inspector Gregson? Do you admit to making a deal with Mr. Graydon in order to acquire the disc?
Ladies and gents of the jury, as a Scotland Yard inspector, I will declare this and nothing more. I am acting in the best interest of the country. Whatever I've done, it's been in the name of justice. So, as members of the public of this fine country, I'd like to think that justice will be your guiding light when you're making your decisions.
Okay, Naruhodo is about to go apeshit.
This is quite a quandary indeed. Rarely have I encountered such extraordinary tumultuousness in the concluding of a trial. Nevertheless, in the absence of any further evidence to be presented...
Oh, we have some! They dealt that hand. This is your fault, Gregson.
I believe it is time that we put together to the jury for their final leanings.
Well now, as fellow servant of Queen and Country, I must say I sympathize with the old inspector.
Yes, he's a dependable man, I'm quite sure. In service, one becomes a good judge of character.
Oh my god, I hate you all. You are all idiots, as Iris says. Idiots! Even crossing your eyes doesn't help when it comes to looking at this case. It's all blurred to me. Well, as a fellow professional, I like to put my faith in the detective, really.
Graydon is highly skilled operator, stop. Currently in presence of Ido, stop.
Detective has very good much trust in eyes. More than this, I cannot say.
I don't believe it. These jurors are idiots.
They're going to believe Gregson. If they declare their decision now...
Is Ginny going to be found guilty?
If I don't manage to produce some definitive evidence right now, then we're going to lose. Either some proof that Graydon killed Mr. Windybank or stole those government secrets, or some evidence to force Gregson into admitting that he struck a deal with the witness.
All right, you two, you forced this on me.
The training gloves are off now.
Well then, counsel, I think it's time I impose on the jurors to declare their final decision, no? That is, unless you have some compelling evidence you have thus far not presented to the court.
If I let the judge call on the jurors to announce their leaning, Gina will be found guilty.
So there's no choice then, Runo. You have to throw some more evidence at them.
This is it now. It all comes down to this. How many times have we said it's all come down to this at this point? Who do I present evidence against? Gregson or Graydon? Both! Actually, either one of them is correct, I believe. Inspector Gregson, there's one final piece of evidence I would like you to see.
Eh? What's that then?
If you refuse to acknowledge that you did in fact strike a deal with the witness here today, then you leave us no choice but to examine this piece of evidence thoroughly.
Well, go on.
This is my last chance. It looks like I'm going to have to force his hand here. One final piece of evidence to get this detective to admit to the deal he clearly struck with Graydon. Sorry, Gregson. You had to go be an ass.
Take that!
Is it? Mr. McGilder's peculiar music box, counsel.
Yes, with the disc already in place, ready to play. I think perhaps now would be a good time to listen to the sound produced by the music box again. Only this time, with the second disc we've just discovered set in place as well.
Oh, goodness, this disc, counsel.
Hold it!
Nope, you had your chance, Gregson. Shut up and listen.
No, wait, I can't let you do that.
You had your chance. Why not?
But because it's got nothing to do with this case, that's why.
Objection!
Not true, Inspector.
Huh?
The defense has already proposed that the sounds heard by the court earlier from this music box were part of a Morse code message. We know that Morse code comprises of two distinct tones. The defense believes that the second disc contains the second tone needed to complete the message. And now we have a chance to confirm that theory.
For crying out loud, Sunshine! We're talking about state secrets here!
Well, then maybe admit your guilt and we won't play it.
If you go letting the whole courtroom hear confidential information like that, it's treason!
Then do you admit the charge? That in order to protect those state secrets, you engaged in unlawful dealings with the witness?
You're mad! You let that secret information out into the public domain? You'll be making an enemy of the entire British government, you idiot!
Objection!
Let's not forget, Inspector, that you, a Scotland Yard officer, leaked confidential case details to a witness. That you continue to lie to the court, and all because, by fair means or foul, you're determined to do your duty. Well, by fair means or foul, I'm prepared to do mine.
Don't you dare!
I dare! I will stop at nothing to protect my client. I don't care what I make an enemy of. God, I love you, Naruto! Fancy's just like, man, there's not enough popcorn for this. He's having fun! My lord, if you please. The court must hear the sounds made by that music box.
Come on, Van Zeeks, for pink's sake! Stop him!
Objection!
Leg! Inspector, you should know my methods by now. I'm a prosecutor. I'm no Scotland Yard's puppet. In this courtroom, my duty is to the law. So let me propose a toast to uncovering the truth, by fair means or foul.
No! Very well. The defense's stance here and that of the prosecution has been made very clear, I feel. Therefore, in accordance with the defense's request, the court will now listen as this music box is set in operation once more. This time with the second disc in place and both discs playing simultaneously. And screenshot.
I feel so chaotic right now. Oh, listen to that. It's unmistakable now. It's Morse code.
Hold it! All right, I admit it. Whatever you want, but for the love of God, shut that bloomin' box up!
Naruhodo chose chaos. He chose violence. Let me ask you again then, Inspector Gregson. Did you, or did you not, strike a deal with the witness next to you in the stand, Mr. Ashley Graydon?
Specifically, did you furnish the witness with confidential case details in exchange for this music box disc? Did you reveal the existence of the peephole in the pawnbroker's storeroom door, Inspector?
I did. Stop! What are you doing, man?
It's all exactly like the young Eastern lawyer said. When the trial resumed after the recess, and we were stood there in the stand together, that's when he approached me with the deal.
Shut up, you imbecile! Shut up! Psst! You there. You're the detective who turned up at the pawnbroker the other day, aren't you? I may have something you're looking for, Inspector. With me at this very moment. So how about a trade? I suggest you accept. Or information that may make certain individuals uncomfortable will soon become very public indeed.
I couldn't let that information become public knowledge, not under any circumstances. So I accepted the man's proposal and told him details about the case that should have put him in the clear. The peephole in the storeroom door, and the bloodstains on the overcoat.
By giving false testimony, this witness intended to have the defendant wrongly accused of murder. Inspector, you knew that. Yet you still reveal those details to facilitate the witness's perjury.
I did. But then it turned out the peephole had only been made that night after the incident took place. Scotland Yard wasn't aware of that, if I'm perfectly honest.
Well, Mr. Graydon, what do you have to say for yourself? There's nothing and no one left for you to hide behind. You struck a deal with the inspector in order to escape conviction of a very serious crime. Namely this. You are the third intruder who broke into the pawnbroker on the night in question. And you perpetrated the murder of the proprietor, Mr. Pop Windybank. You... Traitor! Oh, Gregson! Oh my goodness. No, not the chips! Anything but the chips!
Bailiff, restrain that man! At once, everybody! Holy crap!
Got that breakdown. That's it then. It's all over. Honestly, when I initially saw that scene, I thought he, broken another piece of his, cane, or a tooth came out, but it was a chip. I didn't realize it was actually just a chip. I despise my life growing up. Those slums are vile places. I was cursed from birth, born into poverty, the son of a penniless artisan. My parents did nothing but quarrel all day long. What little money they had was never spent on me. So I set about studying, to better myself, to one day escape from that hellhole.
And you eventually became a communications officer. I admire your determination.
But then you decided to try to sell government secrets. Why? I love this track too. Isn't it obvious? Because I wanted money. Even now, years later, the nightmares of my life in the slums wake me in the small hours. I wanted to drown them out, with more money than anyone who lived in that squalor could ever imagine. Then one day, I met him. Mr. Magnus McGilded.
You're a fiend with a queer talent, so you are. I've money to throw your way if you're interested. All you need to do is go along with me little plan now.
I was to steal the ministry's telegraphic message logs, and McGilded would buy them for a handsome sum. As I was responsible for inspections of the ministry's communications office, it was a simple enough task. The lure of the devil's offerings. How easy it is to succumb.
But you must clearly have realized the seriousness of the crime you were committing.
And for that reason, I took great lengths to ensure that my actions were untraceable. By using the music box. My father was a brickmaker, though my mother divorced him when I was still a child. Yes, Mr. Mason Milverton. That's right. He was very skilled with his hands. He'd once been a music box maker's apprentice. I imagine his skills would be sufficient to create a machine that would generate Morse code. So I sought out my father again, to employ his services. It was the first time I'd seen him since I left the slum 10 years earlier.
Look at you, Ashley. What a fine gent you've become, eh?
He was a different man to the one in my memory. A thin, frail old man. But poverty had never broken him, never corrupted him like it had me. I was sure that he would help me if I told him the real reason. So I made up a story. I've got some work for you, Father. I need some music box discs made.
Music box discs, eh?
A musician friend of mine has written some music he wants to sell to the public. I brought the score with me. There are two, actually.
I'd be delighted, son. It's been 20 years since I did any work like this, though. Fetch my tools, would you? They're in the loft.
That's how I had him make the two discs. Thereby splitting the information in two. You were taking considerate precautions indeed. It was to protect myself as much as anything. It meant that I could deal with McGilded in two separate transactions. The first involved the first of the two discs and the music box for playing them. I exchanged them with McGilded for 10 guineas. Then, on receipt of the second disc, he would pay 1,000 guineas. So, what happened on the omnibus 2 months ago? Was the second part of the deal, the exchange of the second disc. Yes. I sold the man information that way a number of times already. But it seems he became reluctant to part with his money.
But that doesn't quite make sense, Mr. Graydon. For why was it that on the omnibus 2 months ago, your father, Mr. Milverton, was the one dealing with Mr. McGilded and not yourself?
When I received the 1,000 guineas after my first completed dealings with McGilded, I decided to give 200 to my father for his troubles. But my father realized something was amiss. In time, he worked out that I must be involved in something dubious. And when he did, he said to me, "Next time there's an exchange, you'll let your old man do it, understand? Otherwise, I won't take your money anymore." That was my father's way of dealing with it, I suppose. Climb into the omnibus, hand over the second disc, and take the money from McGilded. That's it. He had no idea what was actually on the disc I'd asked him to make. He never knew. Just like I never know why everything went so horribly wrong that night. All I know is that the disc was taken from him, and he never returned home. It was only then that I found out what sort of a monster McGilded really was. So after 10 years of not once uttering it, I swore on my father's name. To exact revenge. Revenge? As anyone with even the remotest knowledge of the man's will no doubt be able to imagine, McGilded brought all his wealth and influence to bear in the most despicable of ways. To crush any semblance of justice in his trial. The crime scene was tampered with, evidence was fixed, and witnesses were bribed. That trial 2 months ago was a farce from start to finish. My feet had barely touched British soil back then. And I walked into that hornet's nest, completely unaware of the sinister background to it all.
Yeah, well, you can yell at Vortex about that. I mean, Mr. Strongheart.
I made plenty of money out of my dealings with McGilded by then, so I spared nothing in my arrangement 2 months ago. I knew exactly who to hire. And you're willing to pay the price. If you're willing to pay the price, there are people in this city willing to do anything you ask. McGilded himself had shown me that. Are you saying that? I think you have the picture now. After he twisted everything in his favor in this courtroom to ensure that he walked free, I took matters into my own hands and delivered the justice that monster deserved.
He set that omnibus on fire!
That tragic accident following the trial here 2 months ago was planned and executed by yours truly. McGilded's death that day was caused by this man.
Everything is ready, sir, if you'd like to follow me into the courtroom.
What's this, officer? 'Tis sooner than I was led to believe.
I hope it's not a convenience, sir. There were some changes to the schedule.
Well, I must be making tracks now. 'Tis time for the inspection.
They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. I asked if I could be present for it myself.
So that policeman who came to tell McGilded he could examine the omnibus again. That's right, an imposter, hired by me. McGilded used his wealth to manipulate the trial. He paid people to adulterate the omnibus with all manner of false evidence. He threatened witnesses to lie in their testimony. So I gave the man a taste of his own medicine. Once the omnibus was doused in paraffin, one of my sham policemen ushered McGilded inside and sent him on a one-way journey to hell. An eye for an eye. That's how I avenged my father's death.
Hoo 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 hoo! A spine-chilling account indeed.
But that wasn't the end of it for me. There was a loose end, you see? A loose end. Yes, I should think it's obvious. The second disc, which my father had taken to exchange with McGilded.
Ah, yes. There was indeed no mention of it in the man's trial 2 months ago. Clearly because it had been removed from the scene of the crime.
When I realized it was missing, I remembered something. Something from the first time I dealt with McGilded. This is the first of the 2 discs, and the music box you need to play them.
Well, look at that now. What an ingenious little invention. So then, as promised, 10 guineas for you, young man.
What is this? Windy Bake's pawnbrokery.
Aye, 'tis a pawnbroker's ticket, so it is. You can use it to redeem an article I've deposited there for ye. There's no need to give a name. Just hand over the ticket and tell the fiend the watchword. I put a jewel in pawn for ye. It'll fetch a good 10 guineas if you sell it, so it will.
I've never heard of a pawnbrokery being used in quite that way before.
Have you not, Mr. Graydon? London's pawnbrokers are very useful places, you know. Each one is like an extremely secure vault.
So I knew that if he'd taken steps to hide the disc, it would be in that pawnbrokery somewhere. And that on the night he killed my father, he must have entrusted the ticket to someone. Yes, to Gina. I remember now that when we first met you at Windybank that afternoon 2 days ago, you had a description of Miss Lestrade written down. How did you know who you were looking for? From the trial. That pickpocket's testimony was clearly peculiar. Anyone could see that. I realized immediately that she was another of McGilded's pawns, that he must have threatened her somehow. I was fairly convinced it would be her who had the ticket, so I started to make some inquiries. I had a strong suspicion the girl would come out of the woodwork on the redemption deadline. And he was absolutely right. And yes, sure enough, she did. All I needed to do was to wait until the girl went to the Windybanks to redeem the articles. But unfortunately, she redeemed only McGilded's overcoat, and the one disc that was in its pocket. The all-important music box with the second disc inside was missing, because it had already been forfeited 2 days earlier. But I was unaware of that fact. Had I not been, I could have avoided my nighttime excursion.
Meanwhile, our investigation into the stolen government secrets was progressing. We picked up on the fact that McGilded was involved.
Inspector, you've recovered fast. Yeah, are you okay, buddy?
My orders were to recover the stolen information as quickly as possible. So we started gathering the fellow's possessions and examined whatever we could lay our hands on. We had a full-scale investigation going on at the yard, but we had to keep it as quiet as we could.
Then, when the inspector here took the disc from me in the pawnbrokery that day, I became nervous. I was sure the music box and the second disc was still there in the shop somewhere. So I knew that it was a race against time. I had to find those articles before the police did. So that's what prompted you to break into the place that night. With the help of your old friends, the Skulkin brothers. What happened that night in the pawnbrokery, I can only describe as a nightmare. While Nash and Ringo was searching the counter, I located the music box I sold to McGilded on the shelves of forfeited articles. And the second disc was inside. Yes, I slipped it into my pocket with a very deep sigh of relief. But then, something entirely unexpected happened.
What are you doing in my shop?
A gunshot rang out in the shop, and I felt a sharp pain in my left arm. The broker fired his gun, and the bullet pierced your limb. Yes, exactly. But unfortunately, I decided to bring my own gun with me that night, just in case. Before I knew what was happening, I'd fired back. The man had already turned to flee. I hadn't intended to fire in his direction, much less kill him. But unfortunately for both of us, the bullet hit home. It struck him in the middle of his back as he fled through the storeroom door for refuge. A sorry, sorry tale. It all took place in the blink of an eye. I don't imagine Nash and Ringo even realized what had happened at first. I was terrified, so I fled. And that's the whole story. That's everything that happened on Windy Bank on that wretched night. I'm going to drink water now while they're all doing this. Earlier, you called McGilded a monster. A man who used his wealth, influence to distort the facts and escape justice for the crime of murder. What tragic irony, for what you have done is exactly the same. You've become the very monster you saw and despised so deeply in McGilded. Yes, I think I have.
Well, this has been a long and exhausting trial.
Tell me about it.
However, it would seem that at last we have arrived at the truth. Inspector Gregson, what if Mr. Ashley Graydon? He's been restrained, my lord, and is being escorted to the yard. He'll be charged with the murder of Mr. Windybank and stealing of government secrets. Very good. And you, Inspector, regrettably, you will have to face charges yourself.
Yes, my lord, of course. It transpires that you were complicit in helping a criminal escape justice. That fact remains, whether or not you were doing so in the line of duty. The crime is a serious one, Inspector, and inexcusable.
Now to the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. Yeah? It is time for the final adjudication. Is the jury ready, Mr. Foreman?
Yes, sir! Garib Squadron standing by, sir. This is really it now. The last push, the final call, the finishing whistle. My men and women are ready to deliver their verdicts.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You will now declare your final decisions to the court.
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Oh my god, we did it, everybody. Oh.
Haha, that's the stuff. I'm off the hook.
Finally, Runo! You managed to pull it. You managed to do it.
Finally is the word. I really wasn't sure if we'd come out on top for a while there.
Susie was right. You're the best lawyer in the world.
Miss Lestrade, I'm not finished with you yet.
Huh? What are you looking at me like that for?
Before you start enjoying your freedom, there are certain other crimes to consider,
Huh?
2 months ago, in my courtroom, no less, you gave false testimony, did you not? And in relation to the trial today, not only did you unlawfully enter Windybank's pawnbrokery, you also attempted to abscond with Mr. McGilded's property, it seems.
Huh? I never done nothing of the sort. Of course not. It's not like you were gleefully wearing McGilded's coat in your cell yesterday or anything.
Aw, and just when I was getting excited about throwing a party for Jeannie this evening.
And turning our attention to the defense. Determining that, when played together, the music box disc contained a message in Morse code was... Well, it was certainly a most unexpected revelation, Counsel.
Quite so, my lord. The prosecution was caught entirely off guard. In fact, I think we should applaud my learned friend's courage here today. I propose a toast to demanding that government secrets be decimated before the entire courtroom. Very sorry about that. It was the only way that I could get Inspector Gregson to admit to what he'd done, so... If I may say something on that point. Isn't that... It's, about the sounds produced by the music box before. I do wonder if that was really Morse code at all. What? What are you saying, madam? Oh, well, it's just that I'm really rather fanatical when it comes to Morse code, you see? So much so that the whole world seems to be covered in dots and dashes to me, in fact.
Goodness, madam. An unhealthy level of obsession one feels.
But I must say that, in my opinion, the sounds produced by those two discs were nothing more than that. A meaningless series of two different tones. What? What? Can that really be? It wasn't Morse code after all? Oh no, it was. The baby slaps! My lord, the defense would like to listen to the music box again. No!
Are you off your nut? How many times do I have to tell you? Those discs contain ministerial secrets, sunshine.
This courtroom is not an appropriate forum to discuss the nature of the government's communications. We know McGilder conspired to trade national secrets with our enemies. Secrets acquired from Mr. Graydon. Now that the man has admitted to his crimes, we have no need to pursue the matter further. But it's really going to bother me.
Miss Lestrade,
Yeah, my lord?
that which you have seen today here in this courtroom has been extremely disturbing.
Falsified evidence, intimidation, perjury, a grim catalogue of depravity.
An appalling experience to befall any child.
Come on, it ain't nothing. I don't see most days in the back slums.
I beg your pardon?
If you're weak, you pay for it. That's just how life goes. Gina. But look, I reckon I've worked something out today. The world ain't fair, but if you want it to change, you've got to start it at home. You've got to change how you are yourself.
Well, that's a very laudable lesson, I would say. I eagerly look forward to the born-again Miss Lestrade never gracing my courtroom with her presence again.
Oh, she'll come back, but not as a witness. Or accused of anything, or a defendant.
Now, with regard to the murder of Mr. Pop Windybank, proprietor of the pawnbrokery business on Baker Street, I hereby declare the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade,
Not guilty! Confetti! Fireworks! Also, an addition from Gina! Thank you, Gina, with your smoke grenade. Bless. Well, and now we know it shoots fireworks too.
that is all. Court is adjourned.
Bang! Oh my god. We can finally leave the courtroom, everybody. Oh no, JK, we still need to do this scene because Baroque has a lot to say to us. Oh my god, I'm so tired, sir. I've been standing at the defense bench for like 5 hours now or something. I'd like to sit down. Don't you want to sit down too, sir? On a personal note, I must say you've surprised me, my Far Eastern friend. Oh. Despite being a Nipponese, you saw through the pretense to the malice that festered within that Englishman, and at the same time saw through the grime to the surprising heart of your English client. You have a curious talent for judging character, especially considering our very different cultures. I don't think there's anything curious about it. Whether we're from the Empire of Great Britain or the Empire of Japan, we're all human beings. We're not so very different on the inside. You know, I took this case for one very simple reason. To lock swords with you once again, here in the courtroom.
You did?
When I encountered you for the first time 2 months ago, it reminded me of toasting friendship and trust with another Nipponese, only to find my trust betrayed. Through you, I hope to look into the eyes of the man I once knew and try to understand. You mentioned something similar earlier today, about total betrayal at the hands of the Japanese. What happened exactly? Well, you may ask. And one day, when the time comes, you will learn the answer, whether you like it or not. All right, then I'll wait for that day, if I must. He drank for the 12th time, coming to be known as the Reaper of the Bailey, and my retirement from service 5 years ago. It gives me cause to wonder if our meeting has some deeper purpose. So, farewell, my lone Nipponese fellow, until we meet again.
6 months later, because he's on probation? Oh, now we're actually out.
17th April, 5:24 p.m., the Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. It's done. It's over at last. But where's Iris disappear to? Congratulations, Gina. I knew it all along. I knew that you were innocent. Well, you did what you said, Mr. Nara-Oto. You believed me, and you believed in me, right up to the end. You're as odd as your name. What's odd about it? I told you I had faith in you, didn't I? No one ever has before, see? Kept the promise, I mean, properly. That's awful. I figured something out today. All me life, growing up in the slums, I've never trusted no one. But that's just 'cause I've been scared of being stabbed in the back. I mean, the more you trust someone, the more it hurts when they let you down. Man, I feel that. Yes, I think I can understand that. After all, I had a taste of it in that trial 2 months ago. I chose to trust someone, and paid for it. That betrayal left a big scar. You know, though, Gina, I worked something out quite recently, too. Trusting in someone else is really an exercise in learning to trust yourself. And when your gut tells you it's the right thing to do, and your trust is rewarded, there's no better feeling in the world. I think I have you to thank for reminding me of that valuable lesson. Oh, well, if you say so. Don't make a fat lot of sense to me, though. I'm trying to say that putting my faith in you, Gina, has been a real pleasure. For crying out loud, pack it in! But I suppose I sort of feel the same way. I mean, sometimes trusting someone else is, you know, all right. Thanks. This is the way I see it, Ryunosuke. A defense lawyer is only as good as his faith in his client. And that comes down to how much faith he has in himself. After this experience, I'm starting to feel like I understand what you mean. Kazuma, am I living up to your expectations? Am I turning out to be the lawyer you believe I could be? Pardon the interruption. Sherlock! But what the deuce does a man have to do to be noticed around here, my dear fellow? Oh my god, the other bailiff actually looked. That voice. It's too late for that voice now, Mr. Naruhodo. I've been standing here patiently in the corner of the room for an eternity. Ahaha, yes, it was me all along. I would have said when you finally noticed me. But you people, with your incessant babbling. Mr. Sholmes! Aha! Yes, it was me all along. You see? Sholmes. I'd assume you've been taken back to the hospital, to be honest.
Indeed I was, but I managed to escape again.
Oh.
I happened to be aware of one or two foibles of the doctor who was tending to me. I merely made my knowledge of them known to the man, and he happily issued me with a leave of absence.
How very above board.
But enough of my adventures. That was a fine victory, Mr. Naruhodo. Your tireless efforts justly rewarded, I feel.
I feel rewarded?
Congratulations are in order. As a close fan, I tip my hat at you.
Oh, thank you.
Huh. Some great detective you are. Great at being cold as ice, maybe. Have I irked you in some way, Miss Lestrade? While you've been having a snooze in your nice soft bed, some of us have been fighting for our lives. Well, that bullet did cause me to lose a substantial amount of blood, it's true. So I have indeed been feeling somewhat cold. Not perhaps as cold as ice, but, well, have a feel.
Could you take your hands off my neck, please, Mr. Sholmes? Your hands?
And in some way, I suppose, congratulations are in order for you, too, Miss Lestrade. What's that supposed to mean? Why so half-hearted? Well, naturally, it isn't my intention to alarm you, but an acquittal in a trial with that particular prosecutor is perhaps a little precarious.
Well done, Mr. Sholmes. Not alarming in the slightest.
Oh, the raper, you mean? 'Cause everyone who's found not guilty in a trial he was working on winds up dead anyway. Is that it? The very point I was trying to make. As exemplified by the fate of Mr. McGilded, in fact. But of course, I pay no attention to such irrational drivel myself.
Yeah, well, it don't bother me.
Oh, really?
Course not. The way I see it, the Reaper's a bit like him upstairs. Him upstairs? You mean like God?
Yeah, him upstairs knows what's what, right? He knows what people are like on the inside. He won't have got the wrong end of the stick. There are some coves like that bog trotter what are rotten to the core. At the end of the day, I'm him upstairs make sure they get what they deserve.
I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Divine justice is one thing, though. The Reaper taking matters in his own hands and claiming lives is another.
Well, I ain't like McGilded's this world, so I ain't scared. I got principles, see? A trait in which is to be admired, Mr. Lestrade. Oi! Just give it a rest, alright? As I was saying, congratulations are in order. The news of your acquittal was very welcome news to me indeed. Let me express my heartfelt congratulations, Gina.
Am I doing a jig?
Well, There you are, Hurley! How long have you been there?
Honestly, I went to the main entrance especially to meet you there.
Ah, Iris, my dear. I do apologize. But wait until I tell you what happened. This pair made utter fools of themselves.
What happened?
As you know, I have a penchant for disguises. I was hiding in this room just as a bailiff. But these dolts didn't notice my presence at all. They had no idea. Can you imagine, Iris? Would you credit it?
I'm not sure, really.
I beg your pardon?
I'm sorry, Hurley, but you just don't have the weighty presence you seem to think you have. In fact, you really ought to be careful about doing that. It's going to land you in trouble one day.
I'll be careful. Told off by a 10-year-old. Ouch.
Anyway, it's such a shame. I was so hoping to throw a party for Jeannie tonight. But you won't be able to come, will you?
I don't look like I'm going to be going nowhere for a while. You are the Judge Potter. I got stuff to make amends for, apparently. All them offenses. What was it again? Breaking and entering, taking the box to the stuff, what was in log, blah blah blah. Yeah, I think you'll find that basically being a pickpocket is the main offense.
But diving ain't an offense. It's a job, isn't it?
I don't think so. Still, it has got me thinking all this. Maybe I should start looking for another line of work. I mean, you didn't start off as a lawyer, did you, Odo? Well, no, but I was never a pickpocket. Well, anyway, I reckon I could make a change.
I'm gonna do something for all them lot like me from the slums.
Something that makes a difference for them.
That's a wonderful idea, Ginny, and I'm sure you can do it. What is it? What is it?
Nothing. Miss Gina Lestrade, the prison carriage has arrived, ma'am. Come with me to the rear gate at once. Right. Well, looks like I'm off then. Yes. Goodbye, Gina, and good luck. Odo? Yes? Okay! Ah! Well, what was that for? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say, so... Ah, indeed. Perhaps the situation calls for a phrase hitherto missing from your vocabulary, Miss Lestrade. Huh? On occasions such as this, I would recommend a simple thank you. Oh.
Oh, yes. It's good advice, Ginny.
Right, I see. Well... Oh, she took off her hat. Thanks, Odo. Oh, precious! Thank you for everything what you've done. For believing in me. Oh, bless. Not at all. In fact, that should be my line. Thank you, Gina. Oh, bless. Oh, bless me soul. I didn't take a screenshot, but it's okay. I have to go through this case again later anyway. I'll take another screenshot then. Well, there she goes. I wonder if I'll ever see her again. Well, quite the indomitable pick purse.
Oh, I nearly forgot. I bought a paper outside. It's a special edition, and this trial's all over the front page. Pickpocket innocent proven. Isn't it wonderful?
You should have shown it to Gina, Iris. She would have been thrilled.
Oh no, how silly of me. But anyway, would you like the good news or the bad news?
Ugh, not again.
Well, what do you say, Runo? Hurley?
As usual, I think I'd rather get the bad news out of the way first.
Absolutely not. I have no intention of listening to anything but good news.
And there you have it. How people answer that question says a lot about them, doesn't it?
Let's not go there.
All right then, maybe let's start with the good news this time. The rain has finally stopped. It was record level of rainfall, apparently.
Well, that is good news indeed. We can journey back in greater comfort. Alright, then what's the bad news?
The huge storm has left the seas very choppy. The channel in particular is awful, so sailings out of Dover have been delayed by a day or more.
Wait, Dover?
That's right. If we head to the station immediately, we may still make it in time to wave Susie off.
But, there won't be a train. Surely. We couldn't be that lucky.
Who do you think I am, Mr. Naruhodo?
Mr. Sholmes?
I rushed to Victoria Station earlier and made arrangements for a special express. If we hurry now, we shall be there in time for dinner. And I know of a fine restaurant that serves the most delicious baked sole.
The great detective does it again.
Indeed he does. I happen to be aware of a number of rail transport directors' foibles. What? I merely made my knowledge of them known to the man, and he happily laid on the locomotive. Elementary.
Just an idea, but it might be wise to stop manipulating people that way.
What are we waiting for then? To London, Victoria.
'18th of April, 5:32 a.m. Port of Dover, Quayside.
That took somewhat longer than I had anticipated.
Susie's boat must be about to leave now.
Miss Susato, where are you? Hanging out over there. Over there. Look, it looks like she's reading something. That book is huge.
Hold it!
Miss Susato, wait! What are you doing?
Mr. Naruhodo, what are you doing here?
We came as soon as we could after the trial. I mean, we heard that sailings were being delayed due to the bad weather, you see?
Oh, I see. Then tell me, how did Gina's trial go?
It went well. She was acquitted.
Oh, that's wonderful. Really wonderful news.
The book you were about to throw into the sea. It was your Encyclopedia of British Law, wasn't it?
Oh dear. I was hoping you hadn't seen that.
So remember when I said those miscellaneous scenes are at the end or spoilers? So those last two miscellaneous scenes that I need are here. I just don't know where, but I'm gonna save it so I can get to this later.
I'm not worthy of practicing law in any way now. So, I was saying my final farewell.
You were saying goodbye to law. You, Susato-san?
Would I be correct to assuming it's because of the peephole, Miss Susato?
I deliberately altered the scene of the crime, and then I tried to hide the fact. What I did is utterly unforgivable. That reminds me. How did you even come to have this, Susie? On the evening of the incident, Mr. Sholmes had invited Gina to dinner, if you remember. Oh yes, we had a wonderful time. Well, Gina gave us a little introductory lesson, didn't she? To the art of pickpocketing, I mean. Oh, that was so much fun! I stole Runo's armband.
Yes, please don't do that again, Iris. That band's very important to me.
Well, if it's so important, then you should pay more attention to it. You didn't notice it for ages.
On a whim, I thought it would be fun to see if I could take the cat flapple-mat, so I put it in my sleeve.
Really?
And then I rather forgot about it until I found myself in Mr. Windybank's shop with it later that night. How could you forget that thing? That thing probably weighs a lot. I see.
And then...
Ah! Mr. Sholmes! Mr. Sholmes!
Leave me, Mr. Naruhodo.
Right. After Mr. Naruhodo had left the shop, I started to think. That door started to play on my mind. The storeroom door, you mean? Yes. If Gina was anywhere in the shop, I realized it could only be behind that door. And at that moment, the little device that I had up my sleeve sprang to mind. I was so worried about Gina, I simply had to know. So you used the cat flapple-mat to make the peephole in the door.
As captured in a photographic print of the shop. By one of Hurley's red-handed recorders.
Indeed. It was of the first importance, that point. Precisely when the peephole was made. That information would prove to be Mr. Naruhodo's greatest weapon. Though naturally, without proof, it wouldn't have amounted to nothing. It would have. But when I looked through the hole in the door, the sight that met my eyes made my blood run cold. Thoughts started to run through my mind. Sorry if I keep saving, because I'm trying to get close to the scene. Whoops! I remember that trial 2 months earlier. The trial of Magnus McGilded. I thought about how he had manipulated the evidence and arranged false testimony to secure his freedom. It made the British justice system feel very dark and sinister to me. And then, a terrible thought occurred to me. What if some wicked criminal was planning to do the same thing now? Because from the appearance of the crime scene, it looked exactly as though Gina had shot Mr. Windybank. Even though I was sure she would never have done such a thing. You were worried that the true culprit would try to frame her for the crime. That's right. But then I realized it would be very difficult for anyone to give false testimony in this case. What do you mean? Well, the crime appeared to have happened behind the door of a locked room. For someone to claim falsely to have witnessed it, there would have to be a way to see beyond the door. Ah. For which, a peephole would be the very thing. Only the peephole I had made wasn't actually there until after the crime had been committed, of course. And the crime would know that, and the criminal would know that. So it wouldn't make any difference. But the possibility of a rather ingenious trap was there, was it not? A trap? Is that why she did it?
So, is that why you kept it a secret, Susie? You never mentioned that you made the peephole to anyone, not even to the police.
I know. And I knew at the time what I was doing was wrong. A criminal offense, even. That's why I decided to confide in Mr. Sholmes. If Mr. Naruhodo was completely backed into a corner with no other possible means of escape, the truth about the peephole could save him. That was my plan. She really does think of everything. But then, why didn't you just tell me everything before the trial began? My dear fellow, you're not thinking straight. If she had done that, it would have rendered you complicit in the whole escapade. You could have been disbarred if you had been seen to have knowingly tampered with the crime scene. So Miss Susato decided to shoulder the burden of responsibility alone. For your sake, and Miss Lestrange's. Miss Susato. I think the line's about to come up. truth is, when it happened, I did it because I lost a little of my faith in the law. Oh. I was worried that the right person wouldn't be convicted of the crime. But the moment I allowed myself to think that is the moment I lost my right to call myself a judicial assistant. And that's the line. I called it. What you did isn't comparable to what he did. Graydon is the one who lied in the witness stand, using that peephole as a way to implicate Gina. And besides, if the peephole inconsistency hadn't existed, I'm not at all sure that she would have been acquitted in the end. Miss Susato, what you did saved Gina's life. Well, with your kind words, Mr. Naruhodo, you saved me too, from my regrets. Well, we must all be thankful that Miss Lestray's freedom has been assured. Yes, exactly. Although some of the loose ends in that trial will continue to play on my mind, I'm sure. But the revelation of the music box disc contains secret messages, Mr. Naruhodo. What a triumph to work that out. I'm full of admiration, and 1 second I need to go respond to someone now, because we are going overtime, and I was supposed to start watching something. Okay, what did I read this? Well, actually, that argument wasn't quite as compelling as I thought it was.
Oh, it wasn't?
There was a communications officer among the jury member, you see? A telegraph operator. And she said that the majority of the sounds on the disc were just meaningless tones. As one would expect. After all, we are talking about secret government communications. No doubt they were written in cipher to avoid being readily understood should they have been intercepted. A cipher in cipher. I see. So then, we could never have hoped to understand the message anyway.
Nonsense, my dear fellow. It's quite a zero-pipe problem, I assure you.
A. So, Gi?
What? Iris?
Well, that can't be a real word, can it? How funny.
That is a name!
Wait, Iris, what did you just say? Oh, I just said asogi. Does that word mean something to you?
Means something? Asogi was the name of my best friend.
Oh, what? But how? How did you know that name, Iris? I wrote it down during the trial before, when the message was playing on the music box.
She's transcribed it on the fly? She really is a genius.
I thought the message probably wouldn't be written out in plain Morse code, so I tried various ways to interpret it. But whatever I tried, the words just don't seem to make sense. That is, in English at least.
Oh!
It suddenly occurred to me, you see? There's more than one Morse code, not just the English variety. Various countries around the world have altered and added to Morse code to use it in their own languages.
I don't believe it. Are you saying...
That's right. I've only actually seen a chart of Japanese Morse code once before, but I think it's based on the Iroha pangram, isn't it?
And you mean to say that in Japanese Morse code, the message says asogi?
Yes, I think so. Sorry, but I don't remember all of the Japanese Morse code.
But Susato probably does.
Iris, would you let me see that?
Miss Susato, do you know it? Do you know Japanese Morse code?
Yes, I spent some time studying it.
Convenient, because I'm quite sure Morse code will become ever more important for international communications. Then might I recommend, my dear madam, that you focus your efforts on the English version.
Be that as it may, Iris, show me the message, please.
Boy, remember when we got to the end of this? We had to wait 2 years to finally figure out what the heck was going on?
Of course.
Man, the people who are playing the Great Ace Attorney for the first time are so lucky. They didn't have to wait 2 freaking years to find the answers. But what can this possibly mean? Whatever is in that long sequence of supposedly meaningless dots and dashes. It's made the color drain from Susato-san's face.
There's no doubt that this message is written in Japanese Morse code.
So the British Empire has been using Japanese for its secret communications? Man, imagine. I'm really glad that they released both the games together because imagine. I have a feeling the Western fans would have the same complaints about the first game if we didn't have the second game come out together.
I don't understand the reason why, but the message appears to be a list of 4 people's names.
4 names.
The first is Kei Asogi.
Kazuma Asogi. Why? Was his name on that disc?
The second is A Shin.
Shin? I don't recognize that name.
The third is T Guregusen.
Gregson. Oh, that's nice. That's a really nice touch.
It would seem Tobias Gregson is the third man on the list.
And what's his name doing in a secret government communication as well?
And the last name.
What's the matter, Miss Susato?
It's just so strange. So unexpected. Oh, what is it, Susie? Don't keep us in suspense. The last name is J. Wilson. What?
Wilson?
John H. Wilson? You mean Daddy? It says only J. Wilson, so I'm afraid I can't be too sure. Then, after the 4 names, it reads, if I translate from Japanese, that is all 4. And that's the end of the message, or rather, the end of what you noted down, Iris.
What the heck? I just can't believe it. Who would ever have thought that those discs contained Japanese Morse code? Not to mention a strange list of disturbingly familiar names.
It would appear that this particular message is a communication of some kind between Great Britain and the Empire of Japan. So, Daddy could be in Japan then, where Susie and Ruta come from. Oh, well... No, it's not very likely, really, is it? I mean, there are thousands of people with the surname Wilson, and there must be lots of J's among them.
Professor John H. Wilson, visiting professor of medicine of the Imperial Yume University. But we can't tell Iris about that now. We just can't. Oh, that's nice. This is so strange. Somehow, in solving the case of Mr. Windybank's murder today, I feel like I've rolled back a boulder at the mouth of a very dark cave.
I do wonder if perhaps it's a dark cave that we shouldn't go wandering inside.
Well, we don't have a choice. We're gonna wander through it in the second game. Toot! Ooh! Oh, it's going honk. Okay, fine.
Oh dear. The ship is going to set sail soon.
Yes, it seems so. Untitled Goose Game? The ship is actually a giant goose.
I sail on that steamship first to the port of Dunkirk in France. Then I'll change onto a larger passenger vessel bound for Japan. You're really going then, Susie?
I wish you a safe passage, Miss Susato.
Thank you so much. I wish all of you the very best.
Miss Susato, I had hoped to have you always at my side, to guide me and support me.
Mr. Naruhodo,
Please, come back soon. As far as I'm concerned, you really are the very best judicial assistant in the world.
oh, I'm quite sure I'll be back before you know it. Really, Susie? Oh, now don't forget, Iris. I made you a promise I've yet to fulfill. A promise? About your manuscript.
Oh yes, the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Well, I'll be waiting for you, Susie. A promise is a promise.
Definitely, Iris. So that line that Naruhodo said was one of the miscellany lines, so...
Mr. Naruhodo,
Yes?
do you remember the first time we met?
Yes, of course. On the SS Brea, when I was dragged out from that wardrobe, still half asleep. And if I remember rightly, you threw me halfway across the cabin with a Susato takedown.
You know very well what I'm talking about after that. It's strange, but being thrown together as we were in that case, I somehow felt straight away that you were the perfect person to continue Kazuma-sama's great legacy.
Miss Susato.
And my instincts were right. I really want to believe. No, I'm sure that I'll be back soon. Farewell until then.
Toot. Is it cutscene? Cutscene!
Somehow we seem to have come to the end of the adventures of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Or the first volume, at least. Looking back now, it feels as though fate has led me on this journey. Fate led me to becoming a lawyer, to traveling halfway around the world, to meeting the great detective. I'm sure there'll be trials and tribulations ahead. Of course there will. But whatever happens, I know I'll be able to turn my fortunes around. After all, I have the greatest friends in the world on my side.
Ah, yes, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, Mr. Sholmes? I have some rather awkward news. The railway company has decided to sue over the special express train, apparently. Huh?
It's caused such a commotion on the line, because of a recursion on the line, all the other trains had to wait at the stations.
But really, we would never have made it to Dover in time otherwise. Anyway, I explained everything and how it was all your fault. Huh? Huh? I believe a formal complaint should be delivered to your office tomorrow. But not to worry, my dear fellow. According to Mr. Sato,
You love defending yourself in court.
huh? Huh? Huh?
It's all right. I'm perfectly happy to testify. He really didn't look like the sort of man who'd do something so outrageous. See?
Mr. Sholmes. Yes? A word, if you don't mind.
Why, certainly. Any word you like. Bellow it out, my dear fellow.
Oh, yes, I love Reno's words. And I just know the one he'll use here.
Then I really must say,
Objection!
objection! There it is! We made it to the credits, everybody! Wah! First game done! 2 Rants magazines to do still.
In the following weeks, hundreds of music boxes arrived at Baker Street from all over Europe. Something was afoot. Though it transpired, I had ordered them myself. So I advertised them for sale with used by Mr. Soames. And the money I earned, consulting detective work, plays a pittance by comparison.
Also, I need to be reading, sorry. We will talk after this part. Nuri! Yeah! Nuri! I freaking love his art style so much! Oh, I can read the credits!
I haven't slept a wink. This manuscript is due tomorrow now. When I'm this busy, Hurley usually cooks me breakfast. Well, cooks is an overstatement, for some dry toast and insipid coffee. I do miss Susie and her lovely Japanese breakfast.
Kitagawa! God, thanks for the music, sir. Thank you so much for the music.
Witness! Your testimony is riddled with contradictions. Exactly! Rarely do rare Koban coins hide under rare stakes themselves.
Well, I don't know, sir. Knows his father is an innocent man. Or are you calling my son a liar? Witnesses, my courtroom is no place for your petty arguments. I know Ito. I recognize Ito. Having delivered the Russian dance to the shore in Shanghai, I lay low on the steamship for a while. But last night, I apprehended an extremely suspicious Japanese national on board.
I've done nothing wrong! All I did was give Buckeye's offspring's refuge in my pocket! A man brings some kittens on board and suddenly he's a hardened criminal! It's not fair!
Poor Soseki! Also, can we address the fact that Wakahai is a girl and not a boy already? Scientific investigation will be the gold standard for policing in the new age. I dream of a world governed by the tenets of order and discipline. Like a great clock, in fact, whose hundreds of parts mesh together in perfect unison. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have 2 minutes and 37 seconds until my next appointment. Okay, bye, Strongheart. Good to know, good to know.
The latest Rants magazine is out, and I'm in it again. Wherever I say that one line she wrote now, I get a standing ovation. Wanna hear it? Huh, not bad, I suppose, for an amateur. Ah, her ladyship puts me to shame.
Been visiting the old girl on a daily basis, of course. Jody, my old jailbird. Must say, battling with those bally stairs every day has done wonders for the Dicky Peg. Managed rather well with the housework, too. Got this maid business taped up, I say. Hope the gossiping neighbors don't realize the man of the house is his own maid. Garretev! You really do have a maid problem.
My Rolly is back on the beat again, and all thanks to the Reaper.
There's nothing I enjoy more these days than hunting out small change in the gutter. I'm a better Bobby now, looking out for Lunias, the dropped halfpennies, and my lovely wife. Oh, Pat.
Oh, Rolly.
Looks like I'm gonna be doing time for a bit now. But Iris comes every day for a natter, so it ain't too boring. She's always going on about all them cases what Holmes is looking into. Criminal investigations are kind of interesting when you get into them. And soon you too will be an inspector, Gina. Yes, I renounced my upbringing and chose a life of sophisticated crime. But regrets, please.
Give over, bruv. That ain't the Ash we used to know. We got time in here to plan the comeback of Milverton and Skokin's milk run, right? The three musket Watsits. Milk in the neighborhood with for all it's worth.
Oh, you three. I'm pretty sure Egg is going to die because he killed someone, but you know, pretty sure he's gonna get hanged, guys.
This past 6 months has been a time I shall remember forevermore. Painful goodbyes and wonderful encounters. I've come to realize that's what life is all about. Naruhodo-san, I promise. Your assistance will return to you one day. But for now, I leave you with many memories and a heartfelt wish that life will treat you well.
The picture. I think there's more to the credits, though. Yeah, there's more to the credits. Do we get new credits? Do we get the proper credits, or do we get the new credits? I don't remember. Oh God, here we go. Oh, I don't wanna. Asogi's gonna leave Naruhodo in like a moment. There they are! There they are! Take a screenshot! Take a screenshot! Hey! Hi! Let's go! Ho. I'm getting screenshots of everyone! Oh, look at these, like, side people! No, they didn't get credits! I don't care, I took a screenshot of all of them! They are all important. I appreciate they've been properly credited, at least. The main crew, at least. Because usually, at least with the, like, American side, like, unions and stuff like that, they usually have things where they don't credit the voice actors properly, so I appreciate that they're there. Are you ready to say goodbye to Asogi? Are you ready? He's about to leave us, everyone! I'm gonna become a master of kazoos at this point. Oh, this credit is so good in HD. I almost dropped the frickin' kazoo. It's really cool to see the credits in HD though, let me tell you. Oh, she's not. She walks at her own pace. So is Iris, actually. Hello, Baroque sir! I feel like they kind of, I think they softened his dialogue a little bit in the localized version. He's still an ass, but I think the choice of certain words kind of, made it softer. I've enjoyed myself very much. It's been great. I mean, I don't have much to say because it's just like, what more can I say? I love this game. Everyone knows how I feel about this game. This is by far the best modern Ace Attorney game as to date at the moment. And I still stand by that. The localization has been really good so far too. I really like it. I should have gotten an illustration too, probably. Let's see. We did it! The first game is done!